Chapter 837. Next to the rippling pond. Those from Nine Darkness Palace and the G family held their breaths as their hearts beat faster. The Jade Water Sky Lotus and the Spirit Flesh Snow Jade Lotus in the pond were legendary treasures. In the current world, they were extremely rare. Among them, the Green Water Sky Lotus had many uses. As for the Spiritual Flesh Snow Jade Lotus, it was extremely profound and had the ability to create a peerless physical body. In comparison, the Spiritual Flesh Snow Jade Lotus could create a physical body, which made it even more valuable. However, the Green Water Sky Lotus was more useful to everyone. It could refine the mind, increase the evolution of one's state of existence, and even heal injuries. So many Green Water Sky Lotuses, we're rich. A disciple of the G family had an excited expression as he leaped toward the pond. Quick, take action. A genius from Nine Darkness Palace couldn't help but leap into the air and grab a Green Water Sky Lotus. The expressions of Jiao Wuji and Ji Lan changed slightly, but it was too late to stop him. Weng Bo. Suddenly, a strand of surging and shocking might of water surged out from within the pond, and a layer of brilliant ripples arose on the surface of the pond. Pang! Pang! The hands of the two geniuses were sent flying by the ripple when they were about to approach the Green Water Sky Lotus. Wah! The two half-step king geniuses spat out blood in the air. Hu Bo! The ripple in the pond seemed to have its own intelligence and formed a green whirlpool that soared into the sky and pulled the two geniuses. Save me! The two geniuses struggled in the air with fear on their faces. Jiao Wuji harumphed coldly and made a grabbing motion with one hand. A black hand made of light shot through the air and grabbed that genius. Ji Lan, of the Ji family, held a silver whip in her hand. Purple light flowed around it like a spirit snake, coiling around the genius on her side. However, she was slightly too slow, and the genius's body was devoured by the green whirlpool. Arg! The lower half of the genius's body was torn into pieces by the ripple, and his entire body was devoured by the whirlpool. Ji Lan felt a strong force. Her delicate body was shaken, and she was almost pulled into the blue water ripple. Since that genius body had been torn to shreds, the silver whip in her hand became lighter, and she retracted it. Ji Lan's face paled. She was still scared. The unknown power within the pond definitely had the ability to devour Void God Realm kings. Previously, the reason why Zhao Feng, Jiao Wuji, and the others didn't act rashly was because they felt a powerful water spiritual aura coming from the pond. There was a moment of silence beside the pond. The faces of those from the Nine Darkness Palace and Ji family were filled with fear as they unconsciously distanced themselves from the pond. The two people who attacked just now were both half-step kings. Jiao Wuji was powerful and experienced, so he only barely managed to save one of them with his fast reaction speed. The Ji clan's genius died without a corpse to be seen. He died without a burial ground, which made people's hearts turn cold. That pool of water seems to possess intelligence. It will automatically attack its target. What kind of unknown power is hiding in the pond? Those from Nine Darkness Palace and the Ji family stared at the pond and discussed in low voices. At this moment in time, the surface of the pond became calm once more, and it seemed to be just a normal pond. As I thought, this pond doesn't just have intelligence. Zhao Feng murmured as a faint smile appeared on his face. He and Nan Gongsheng were the first to arrive, but they stood next to the pond and didn't do anything. Young Sir Zhao, can you tell me what's so mysterious about this pond? Ji Lan hadn't recovered from the shock and asked Zhao Feng humbly. The purple-haired youth beside the pond had a faint smile in his eyes, as if he could see through everything. Hearing that, both sides looked at Zhao Feng. It's very simple. Zhao Feng said calmly, everything has intelligence, and this pond has given birth to a powerful water Yao spirit under such a good environment. Water Yao spirit? Everyone paused and started to think. Simply put, the pond itself is a powerful being. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled. Bo. As soon as he said that, a ripple appeared on the surface of the pond. It was as if it was replying to Zhao Feng's words. Surprise flashed across Jiu Wuji's face. The pond itself was a powerful being, and the water's spiritual energy it contained could rip apart Void God Realm kings. Apart from that, Zhao Feng was only at the origin core realm, but he was able to see through the mysteries of the pond so easily. This made Jiu Wuji wary, and he couldn't see through Zhao Feng. Purple-haired demonic duo, do you have a way to obtain the green water sky lotuses in the pond? Jiu Wuji asked in a deep tone. He had interacted with the purple-haired demonic duo before, and he knew how wicked they were. A way? I'm thinking. Zhao Feng propped his chin with one hand and started to think. This made Jiu Wuji and company feel like they were choked and speechless. Maybe Zhao Feng had already thought of a way, but he just didn't want to say it. Or maybe he wasn't sure yet and wanted to observe for a bit longer. Nine Darkness Palace and the Ji family stood next to the pond and thought of a plan. We can use a whip weapon to obtain the green water sky lotuses. That way, even if we don't succeed, there won't be any danger to our lives. An elder from Nine Darkness Palace said. Immediately, a half-step king monarch with a whip stepped forward. Ha! The half-step void god realm roared as the dark silver whip in his hands suddenly extended dozens of yards. The tip turned into a tentacle that grabbed toward one of the green water sky lotuses. Right as the dark silver whip was about to grab the green water sky lotuses, bam! Within the pond, a layer of brilliant blue water rippled and blasted the dark silver metal whip away. At the same time, a powerful surge of water's spiritual energy flowed through the whip. Bam! The half-step void god realm flew back and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was severely injured and couldn't stand up for a long time. The water's spiritual energy contained in this pond is too strong. It'll be hard to fight against it without the battle power of an emperor. Jiu Wuji's eyebrows furrowed as he had a solemn expression. Next. Nine Darkness Palace and the Ji family thought of all kinds of ideas to obtain the green water sky lotuses. Those ideas included draining and diverting the water from the pond, and using extremely strong flames to deal with the pond. He even came up with the bold idea of moving mountains and filling ponds. However, all of these ideas failed. In the process of implementing these methods, they were all obstructed and counterattacked by the clear pond. The pond itself is a huge individual, a life form with intelligence. It can even hear your ideas, and with its powerful water's spiritual energy, how could it just sit there and wait for death? Zhao Feng had a mocking expression. Hearing this, Jiu Wuji was slightly annoyed and felt his face losing face. He was one of the strongest kings of the older generation. When had a junior ever told him what to do? Young Sir Zhao is right. If we want to deal with the pond, we have to treat it like an intelligent life form. We have to find its weakness and attack it. Ji Lan from the Ji family didn't believe it. Jiu Wuji suppressed the anger and unhappiness in his heart. He knew that the purple-haired demonic duo weren't easy to deal with. In the previous battle, he had been defeated by the purple-haired demonic duo. However, Zhao Feng's words gave Jiu Wuji and Ji Lan some inspiration. Since this pond is an intelligent life form, it can't avoid using soul elemental techniques. A smile appeared on Ji Lan's face. What do you mean? Jiu Wuji's eyes lit up as he understood what Ji Lan was thinking. Zhao Feng revealed a look of praise and nodded his head. Since the pond was an intelligent life form, it would be hard for it to break through. Then why not attack from the soul dimension? Although it was strong because it was born, it didn't mean that its soul was strong. After all, the pond itself wasn't alive, and it wasn't a human being. Jiu Wuji and Ji Lan immediately teamed up and attacked. Purple Star Eyes. Ji Lan's purple hair blew in the wind, and her eyes were like two purple stars that released a dazzling soul eye bloodline power in the soul dimension. In that instant, the nearby geniuses and elites all felt a terrifying aura sweep through their souls and were enveloped by illusions. Ji Lan's purple star eyes specialized in illusion soul attacks. This attack had the effect of an illusion and could affect the soul. At the same time, it was a physical soul attack. When ripples immediately appeared on the surface of the jade pond, and then waves began to rise and fall. It was obvious that Ji Lan's soul eye bloodline technique had some effect. Demonic Sky Hand. Jiu Wuji roared and used this chance to attack. Boom! A gigantic pitch-black hand pierced through the void, drawing upon boundless black cloud flame energy and the vast power of the demonic Tao. With an earth-shattering might, it smashed towards a certain area at the edge of the blue pond. Boom! The gigantic demonic hand collided with a layer of ripples on the surface of the pond. Under normal situations, even if Jiu Wuji's demonic Tao secret technique was close to an emperor's, he wouldn't be able to break through the pond's defense. However, at this moment, the pond was affected by Ji Lan's purple star eyes illusion and soul attack, so it couldn't even use 50% of its power. Boom! Jiu Wuji circulated his demonic Tao and domain to the maximum, and the demonic hand finally pushed the ripples down a few feet. At the same time, the geniuses and elites of the Ji family and Nine Darkness Palace all took action to suppress the pond. Star Destruction Annihilation. Ji Lan's face went red as she gritted her teeth and circulated her soul Tao eye bloodline technique to the maximum. Finally, with everyone's power, they managed to push the ripples down by half a yard, but it was only limited to the small area where the demonic hand was. 2 or 3 green water sky lotuses could be seen in that area. As for the spiritual flesh snow jade lotus, it was in the deeper part of the pond and was hard to find. However, even then, everyone was overjoyed. Attack! Take the sky lotuses! 2 elders barely managed to free themselves from the 2 groups and used whips to obtain the green water sky lotuses. However, the process wasn't easy. The ripples on the surface of the suppressed pond occasionally moved up and down, pushing back the experts who had attacked. One of the elders wasn't able to defend, and the whip in his hand was sucked away by the ripples. The ripples on the surface of the pond were barely suppressed, but they were undulating. From time to time, whirlpools would form or sharp waves would shoot out. 10 breaths later, Nine Darkness Palace and the Ji family teamed up and barely managed to obtain 1 green water sky lotus. It wasn't complete, and some petals and leaves were scattered. I can't hold on for much longer. Jiu Wuji's face was bright red, and his true yuan was in a half-burning state. The demonic hand that had formed his demonic Tao domain started to show signs of instability. I can't hold on for much longer either. Ji Lan's eyes, which looked like purple stars, flickered as cold sweat beaded on her forehead. Take it. At the last moment, an elder from the Ji family barely managed to pluck a few petals, and those from Nine Darkness Palace were lucky enough to grab a lotus seed. When boom, huge waves surged in the jade pond. The blue waves stirred up a strong storm. Bam! Bam! Jiu Wuji and Ji Lan, who were at the front, were sent flying. Blood leaked out of Ji Lan's mouth, and a pair of flaming black wings formed behind Jiu Wuji's back as he barely managed to stabilize himself. Not bad. Zhao Feng's mouth curled up, as if he was enjoying a spectacular performance. Nine Darkness Palace and the Ji family teamed up and managed to obtain 1.5 green water sky lotuses. They actually succeeded. Nan Gongsheng's eyes were moved, and he didn't hide his greed. Not good. Everyone, watch out for the purple-haired demonic duo. Jiu Wuji's expression changed dramatically as he thought of something in the air. The purple-haired demonic duo had started off by stealing, and they might take this chance to attack. Perhaps the purple-haired demonic duo's style had changed recently, and they didn't steal anymore. Instead, they suggested some ideas, which was why the leaders of both sides had forgotten about them. Damn it! Ji Lan also realized this. She had been tricked by the purple-haired demonic duo. A leopard couldn't change its spots. Now that Ji Lan and Jiu Wuji were sent flying and even injured, would the purple-haired demonic duo not try to steal it? Nan Gongsheng unconsciously licked his lips as he felt an instinctive excitement. It's just 1.5 green water sky lotuses. A disdainful voice came from the purple-haired youth of the purple-haired demonic duo. At the same time, a hand gently patted Nan Gongsheng's shoulder and stopped him from attacking. They didn't do anything. When did the purple-haired demonic duo change? Jiu Wuji and Ji Lan looked at each other and let out a long breath. They felt disbelief. Next to the pond, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng stood there and didn't do anything. If the purple-haired demonic duo had taken the chance to attack, they wouldn't have been able to stop them in time. From what Zhao Feng said, it seemed like he didn't care about the 1.5 green water sky lotuses. Okay, it's our turn now. Zhao Feng's gaze swept across the slightly tired group from 9 Darkness Palace and the Ji family. Hearing that, Ji Lan and Jiu Wuji's hearts shook. The people from both sides were bewildered as they stared fixedly at the calm purple-haired youth. What method will the purple-haired demonic duo use to obtain the green water sky lotuses? Apart from feeling bewildered, there was also an indescribable sense of anticipation. Zhao Feng took a step forward, and his purple hair blew without any wind. Purple lightning flashed within his left eye, and a limitless world of purple appeared. In just one step, Ji Lan's eye bloodline started to tremble for some reason. Pandiao spirit. Hand over half of the green water sky lotuses and spiritual flesh snow jade roots, and I'll let you live. A dominating and emotionless voice shook the soul dimension. The hearts of everyone present, including Jiu Wuji and company, trembled when they heard this voice. Those from 9 Darkness Palace and the Ji family looked at each other. Weird expressions appeared on Jiu Wuji's and Ji Lan's faces. It was hard to believe that Zhao Feng had used such a dominating style to threaten the intelligent Pandiao spirit to hand over the treasures. Chapter 838. Pandiao spirit. Hand over half of the green water sky lotuses and spiritual flesh snow jade roots, and I'll let you live. Zhao Feng's domineering and direct threat caused the hearts of everyone present to shake. Before, Jiu Wuji and Ji Lan had only managed to get 1.5 green water sky lotuses after working so hard. However, Zhao Feng was simple. He just asked for half of the sky lotuses and jade roots, which added up to at least a few hundred. As soon as he finished speaking, boom. Within the pond, surging waves rose up, as if declaring the anger and disdain of the demon spirit in the pond. Humph. Zhao Feng snickered coldly as he opened his left eye. A terrifying surge of soul eye bloodline power condensed to the extreme and turned into a mental energy spike that pierced into the pond. In that instant, the nearby elites felt a piercing pain and pressure in their souls. And this was just the remnant of the soul eye bloodline power. Ji Lan's purple star eyes started to tremble uneasily as the soul eye bloodline power within them was suppressed. Even someone as strong as Jiu Wuji felt a chill in his heart and felt uneasy. Arg! A shrill scream came from the jade pond. Boom! Boom! The mental energy spike pierced into the Pandiao spirit's soul, and it was as if 10,000 bolts of lightning were descending. At this moment, Zhao Feng's emperor intent had awakened, and he could use a lot of the power of God tribulation lightning in his soul. His soul eye bloodline power had also been refined by the God tribulation lightning in his previous life. Even a normal mental energy spike could contain some of the power of the God tribulation lightning. Weng boom! Waves rose within the pond, and the scream that came from the soul lasted for a long time. Just a mental energy spike formed from Zhao Feng's soul eye bloodline power had injured the Pandiao spirit's consciousness. Watch as I destroy your consciousness. Zhao Feng roared. He had already seen through the Pandiao spirit's strength. The pond demon spirit's strength was incomparably strong. This was the nurture of the innate environment. After countless years, it had formed its own consciousness, and this jade pond was its body. However, the formation of intelligence and consciousness was relatively slow. The pond demon spirit didn't know how to condense and strengthen its soul, so it had to rely on the accumulation of time. In terms of strength, the pond demon spirit was comparable to a great emperor. It was just that it couldn't leave the range of the pond. Its soul was close to that of an emperor in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality and technique, it wasn't as good as a king that specialized in the Tao of the soul. Therefore, Zhao Feng's simple psychic pierce was enough to injure the consciousness of the pond demon spirit. In a flash, a transparent layer of wind lightning eye flame appeared in Zhao Feng's left eye. This was a soul-level attack, and it was a powerful eye bloodline technique. The elements of the wind lightning eye flame and the pond demonic spirit countered each other. What a powerful soul eye bloodline flame! Ji Lan could feel the terrifying power of the wind lightning eye flame. Normal kings would probably be instantly killed, and their soul would be destroyed. They wouldn't even have the chance to steal another body. Zhao Feng was confident that this wind lightning eye flame would be able to severely injure the consciousness of the pond demon spirit. It might even cause its consciousness to crumble. Boy! Boy! The ripples in the jade pond seemed to indicate that the pond demon spirit was extremely afraid. No matter how strong it was in the physical dimension, it wouldn't be able to resist Zhao Feng's soul-level eye bloodline flame. My lord, please spare me. Within the rippling pond, a jade rippling water fairy that was like a blooming lotus flower condensed, emitting a majestic water spiritual pressure. The geniuses and elites around the pond felt a suffocating pressure. My lord, I'll let you have the green water sky lotus and the spiritual flesh snow jade root. The jade wave water fairy had an otherworldly aura and was lovely and moving. She had a pleading look on her face and looked quite pitiful. This scene left Jiu Wuji, Ji Lan, and the others dumbfounded. As soon as Zhao Feng appeared, he forced the pond demon spirit to hand over the green sky water lotus and the spiritual flesh snow jade root. Thinking about how they had only managed to obtain 1.5 green water sky lotuses after working so hard. Only now did everyone understand why Zhao Feng didn't even bother taking the 1.5 green water sky lotuses from before. Collect the spoils of war. Zhao Feng's left eye locked onto the lotus-like green rippling water goddess. The jade wave water fairy was a body formed from the jade wave water of the pond. So easily. Nan Gongsheng was dazed and couldn't believe what he was seeing. Zhao Feng's order made him understand, and he quickly flew off to collect the green water sky lotuses and spiritual flesh snow jade roots. Meow meow. A silver-gray line flashed, and a kitten landed in the pond first. It swiftly harvested the azure water sky lotuses and the spiritual flesh snow jade roots. Zhao Feng didn't do anything, but his left eye flashed with a cold light that made the green rippling water goddess feel as if she was being frozen. Whoosh! Whoosh! Nan Gongsheng and the little thieving cat quickly picked the spoils of war in the pond. Jiu Wuji and company were dazed. Their eyes went red with jealousy, and their hearts were filled with unwillingness. Just how many emerald water sky lotuses were there in this pond? Not long later, Nan Gongsheng and the little thieving cat took half of the green water sky lotuses and spiritual flesh snow jade roots. That's enough. Zhao Feng waved his hand and told Nan Gongsheng and the little thieving cat to stop. He could already tell that the green water sky lotuses and spiritual flesh snow jade roots were related to the pond demon spirit's foundation. Since they were willing to submit, Zhao Feng was willing to give them a chance to live. After organizing the spoils of war, there were around 600 to 700 green water sky lotuses and spiritual flesh snow jade roots. Zhao Feng, all these spoils of war belong to you. Nan Gongsheng only kept 10 green water sky lotuses and a few spiritual flesh snow jade roots. In reality, with Nan Gongsheng and Zhao Feng's level, keeping a few green water sky lotuses would be useful, but there was no point in keeping more. True mystic light realm sacred lords and demigods didn't just rely on a large amount of resources, they also had a higher demand for quality as they progressed. If the quality of the resources wasn't high enough, they wouldn't be able to create an emperor. If I take these green water sky lotuses to the outside world, I can create a bunch of void god realm kings. Zhao Feng had his own plans. Green water sky lotuses were split into petals, seeds, and leaves. They were very useful for the soul, the physical body, and even healing. This was a rare treasure for those below the void god realm. Zhao Feng could use a few himself to consolidate his cultivation and awaken his emperor intent. However, this spirit flesh snow jade root, the more, the better. A faint smile formed on Zhao Feng's face. The spiritual flesh snow jade lotus root could create a body with high aptitude. It was not an ordinary body of flesh and blood. Luckily, Zhao Feng cultivated the 10,000 divine thoughts technique, which allowed him to split his thoughts into countless parts. Think about it. If he had enough resources, he could create a bunch of jade root clones, which could be controlled by the 10,000 divine thoughts technique. They could be used to attack, lure enemies, or even become human bombs. In some situations, the clones created from the spiritual flesh snow jade roots could even be used as a temporary host. The most ideal scenario was for Zhao Feng to create thousands of clones. At that point in time, any physical body would just be a host for Zhao Feng. Only his soul would remain. Of course. This was just a thought that Zhao Feng had after meeting the spiritual flesh snow jade root, and it had toppled conventional wisdom. Purple-haired demonic duo. Aren't you afraid that you'll burn your hands by taking such a large amount of resources for yourself? Jiu Wuji had an unfriendly gaze. The eyes of the geniuses from Nine Darkness Palace and the Ji family turned red or green as they stared at Zhao Feng. How could they accept Zhao Feng taking such a large amount of resources for himself? Each green water sky lotus or spiritual flesh snow jade root was a peerless treasure in the outside world. For half-step void god realms and normal void god realms, even one was extremely tempting. Furthermore, Zhao Feng had obtained such a large amount of peerless resources. What? You want to fight? A playful smile appeared on Zhao Feng's face. Everyone's bodies froze. Zhao Feng's words struck a chord in their hearts. If it was any other genius or elite, they would have the thought of stealing Zhao Feng and Zhao Feng's harvest. However, the strength of the purple-haired demonic duo and Zhao Feng's unfathomable strength made Jiu Wuji and company wary. If they really fought, they definitely wouldn't be able to stop the purple-haired demonic duo. If Zhao Feng was serious, both sides might suffer heavy losses, and the consequences might be even worse. Most importantly, it was hard to guess how strong Zhao Feng was. The youth in their vision had purple hair, a purple left eye, and a smile that wasn't a smile. He was like a dead ocean that no one knew how deep he was. See you later. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng were covered by a layer of silver and purple as they flew into the distance. Preposterous. The playful voice almost made Jiu Wuji explode in anger. Why are there broken green water sky lotuses here? There's also the spiritual flesh snow jade root. Suddenly, one of the geniuses exclaimed. There were some broken green water sky lotuses and some rotten snow jade roots where Zhao Feng had left. All in all, they were all defective items. Quick! The geniuses and elites present instantly started to fight over them. Chaos broke out on both sides. There were a lot of defective products left behind. There were dozens of them. After all of them were taken, Jiu Wuji's expression was extremely grim as he gritted his teeth and said, "This Zhao Feng is definitely doing this on purpose." Zhao Feng had obtained a large number of peerless resources, but he had left behind some defective items for the others to fight over. This was like a rich person leaving behind some leftovers for beggars to fight over. He's going too far. The demonic light around Jiu Wuji's body shook, and he almost went berserk. He made up his mind to find the right opportunity to make a move on this fat sheep. Ha ha ha. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng were covered by a layer of silver and purple as they charged forward. Laughter sounded. 4 hours later, the two found a hidden fake mountain, took out the green water sky lotuses, and started to use them. Zhao Feng, with these green water sky lotuses, I'll be able to break through to the late stages of the void god realm very quickly. Nan Gongsheng was extremely confident. Sure. Zhao Feng also took out a green water lotus seed and put it in his mouth as he circulated the 10,000 divine thoughts technique to consolidate his emperor intent. Chapter 839. The green water sky lotus had many uses. Its petals, seeds, and leaves were all useful for void god realm kings. Zhao Feng first took out a lotus seed and consolidated his soul intent. The petals, seeds, and leaves of the emerald water sky lotus all had a cleansing and purifying effect. The lotus seed also had a similar effect on soul intent. Before, Zhao Feng used the soul-suppressing stone to refine and absorb soul power. After all, he was using an external force to strengthen his soul in a short amount of time. However, this method had its drawbacks. Right now, Zhao Feng was using the green water lotus seed to consolidate his soul intent and get rid of some of the hidden injuries. It would have been perfect if I had gotten the green water sky lotus earlier. Zhao Feng couldn't help but sigh. He took out a flower petal and swallowed it, causing a weird and refreshing aura to spread through his body. Apart from the cleansing effect, the lotus petal could also increase one's state of existence and get rid of hidden injuries and poisons. After entering the divine illusion dimension, Zhao Feng had used an external force to increase his strength in a short amount of time, but his body was still under some pressure, including some hidden injuries. Through the lotus petals and seeds, Zhao Feng's body and soul were both strengthened. Half a day later, after using a green water sky lotus, Zhao Feng felt refreshed, and his mental energy reached its peak. However, he still felt slightly regretful. If Zhao Feng had obtained the green water sky lotus earlier, his cultivation and strength would have increased even more. Unfortunately, Zhao Feng's soul was already quite strong among void god realm kings. Its quality and density far surpassed the void god realm kings. The lotus seed could only consolidate Zhao Feng's soul, but it didn't increase his strength at all. On the other hand, Nan Gongsheng's cultivation and soul had increased a lot through the green water sky lotus. Nan Gongsheng was at the crucial moment of breaking through to the late stages of the void god realm. Zhao Feng stood to the side and protected him. Nan Gongsheng will probably break through to the late stages of the void god realm within 3 days. Zhao Feng took back his gaze. As such, Zhao Feng decided to consolidate his strength before entering the depths of Xiaoyang Palace. Puchi. Zhao Feng tore off a few more petals of the green water sky lotus and swallowed them. This lotus petal could increase the evolution of one's state of existence, but it wasn't very effective on Zhao Feng, who was at the peak of the 4th level of the sacred lightning body. The main reason was that Zhao Feng's state of existence and body already had a strong foundation that surpassed normal void god realm kings. However, Zhao Feng did not give up. He took the lotus petals one by one. Every time he took a petal, a fresh aura would bloom in his body, cleansing his body, expelling impurities, and expelling hidden injuries. Perhaps 1 or 2 pills would have an average effect, but what about 10, dozens, or even hundreds of pills? Every emerald water sky lotus had 1 to 20 petals. When the quantity reached a certain level, it could also cause a qualitative change. 2 days later, Zhao Feng had consumed more than 200 lotus petals. His skin was white and tender like a baby's, enough to make some girls jealous. Poof poof. Zhao Feng's eyes were tightly shut, and his entire body was surrounded by a layer of rippling water lightning, which made a sizzling sound. Crack! Crack! At a certain moment, the bones in Zhao Feng's body started to crack, and a faint golden light appeared on his skin. What was even weirder was that Zhao Feng's body instantly increased in size, and he was like a small golden blue giant. In terms of body size, he had already surpassed normal humans. When a faint layer of faint golden blue lightning appeared around Zhao Feng's body. Rumble. In an instant, the fake mountain that Zhao Feng was on collapsed, and only a pile of charred stone was left behind. What a strong body. On the other side, Nan Gongsheng, who was about to break through, felt the blood within his body shake, and he felt a heavy pressure on his body. Fortunately, the two of them kept a certain distance from each other while cultivating. Crack! Crack! Zhao Feng's bones and muscles started to contract, and he turned into the size of an 8-year-old child. However, his face remained the same. When the layer of faint golden blue lightning became brighter and almost materialized, forming a barrier around Zhao Feng's body. 5th level of the sacred lightning body. Joy and excitement appeared on Zhao Feng's face. Back then, the child demigod had only managed to reach the 5th level of the Golden Kuan's sacred body after reviving from a drop of blood and using a large amount of resources. He only beat Zhao Feng in terms of a small level. On the other hand, Zhao Feng's Golden Kuan sacred lightning body could be seen as a strengthened version of the Golden Kuan's sacred body, and its potential was even greater. A few breaths later, Zhao Feng calmed down. His body returned to its normal size, and the physical force lightning runes around him quickly faded. After breaking through to the 5th level of the sacred lightning body, Zhao Feng's confidence increased dramatically. From then on, he didn't use his true yuan or his eye bloodline. Just his physical strength alone was enough to suppress normal Void God Realm Kings. Once he got close, normal Void God Realm Kings would be crushed by him. The sacred lightning body didn't just give him physical strength, it also gave him strong defense, survivability, and recovery speed. It could be said that the 5th level of the sacred lightning body was comparable to the beginner immortal body. Without enough power, one wouldn't be able to threaten it at all. 4 hours later, a surge of magnificent power appeared in the fake mountain area, and silver and purple light appeared in the air like clouds. In an instant, a mysterious and evil aura caused the surrounding yuan qi of the world to freeze in a strange manner. At this moment, even the nearby god's restriction formation trembled and sensed it for no reason. Zhao Feng revealed a weird expression. It wasn't because Nan Gongsheng had broken through to the late stages of the Void God realm, but because his cultivation had increased. One had to know that there were powerful laws within Xiaoyang Palace that suppressed all sorts of powers. However, Nan Gongsheng's aura when he broke through was able to cause the god's forbidden array to react. Success! Nan Gongsheng's purple hair became more bewitching, and the purple and blood-colored mark on his forehead became brighter. His every breath and every movement he made contained an unparalleled power that could cause ordinary quintessence to crumble without putting up a fight. Zhao Feng was slightly surprised when he saw this. At this moment, the evil god crystal had completely merged with Nan Gongsheng's spatial domain, and it had even merged with the foundation of his true yuan dimension. Nan Gongsheng's spatial power and the power of the evil god crystal had completely merged together. At this moment, Nan Gongsheng was extremely strong, and his strength completely surpassed Jiu Wuji from 9 Darkness Palace. If he didn't use his left eye bloodline and emperor intent, even Zhao Feng didn't have any confidence in beating him. Congratulations, Nan Gongsheng. With your current strength, you can rank in the top 20 of the Great Gan Imperial Geniuses. Zhao Feng congratulated with a smile. When Nan Gongsheng first entered the Divine Illusion dimension, his strength was only around the top 100 of the Imperial Geniuses. The late stages of the Void God realm are much faster than I expected. All of this is thanks to the evil god Crystal and junior martial brother Zhao. Nan Gongsheng couldn't help but sigh, and his gaze became complicated when it landed on Zhao Feng. If it wasn't for the fact that he met Zhao Feng, he wouldn't have had such fortune and continued to grow stronger. Zhao Feng shook his head disapprovingly. When he first entered the Divine Illusion dimension, he wasn't strong enough, and he needed to rely on a group. Luckily, he met Nan Gongsheng, and he was able to use the latter's king-level strength and his unique spatial talents. From a certain perspective, Zhao Feng helped Nan Gongsheng, and Nan Gongsheng helped Zhao Feng. The two of them needed each other, and they formed a perfect team. Now, both Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng had the ability to act alone. Zhao Feng's sacred lightning body had broken through to the 4th level, and he didn't have any weaknesses in terms of basic battle power, so he didn't need Nan Gongsheng anymore. However, the two of them could unleash even more power when they worked together. Zhao Feng, I can feel a power calling out to me from the depths of Xiayang Palace. Nan Gongsheng wanted to say something, but he finally said it. Hearing that, a light flashed through Zhao Feng's eyes. There was no need to guess at all. This definitely had something to do with the evil god crystal. The evil god crystal was most likely formed from the divine power of ancient god Xiayang, and it was stored in the underground city to stabilize the disasters caused by the black serpent dragon's struggles. However, no matter how strong the seal was, it would still have flaws after countless years. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng taking the evil god crystal was just the fuse. Nan Gongsheng, you've already started to merge with the power of the evil god crystal, but it hasn't truly changed your personality yet. If you go along with the call of this power, you might be able to grow infinitely stronger, but the dangers involved are difficult to estimate. In the end, you might lose everything. Zhao Feng's tone contained a hint of warning. This call was most likely related to the power left behind by ancient god Xiayang. Right now, Nan Gongsheng had two choices in front of him. The first was to stop while he was ahead. With the help of the evil god crystal, Nan Gongsheng's potential would increase, and he wouldn't need to worry about it before he reached the heavenly divine realm. His future achievements wouldn't be any weaker than the demigod Kun Yun at his peak. The second was to listen to the call and continue forward. However, the dangers involved were unpredictable. After all, the evil god crystal was the power of a god, and this palace was also the palace of a god. How could mortals dream about the power of a god? Furthermore, Xiayang was an evil god, and he definitely wasn't a good person. Nan Gongsheng stood there and took a deep breath. His expression flickered as he thought for a long time. The next choice would definitely be the turning point of his life. In reality, Nan Gongsheng was already lucky that the evil god crystal didn't affect his personality or assimilate it. Zhao Feng had also helped them both in the open and in the shadows. Furthermore, Zhao Feng was an unsurpassable mountain in Nan Gongsheng's heart. Junior Martial Brother Zhao, you once chased after the Emperor of Death and revived the demigod Kun Yun. Since you've helped me until now, you should help me to the end. Nan Gongsheng bowed deeply toward Zhao Feng with gratitude and expectation. The choice is up to you. A forceful physical force appeared from Zhao Feng's body and blocked Nan Gongsheng's bow. Instinct tells me that the power that's calling me can allow me to reach the peak of the human world and even touch the domain of gods. Nan Gongsheng took a deep breath as a desire for power appeared in his eyes. The domain of gods. Even Zhao Feng was slightly moved. Okay, this is your choice. I will help you. Zhao Feng agreed. In reality, he still had many other things to consider. If he followed Nan Gongsheng's lead, he might be able to find some secrets regarding the domain of gods in the depths of Xiayang Palace. Outside Xiayang Palace, Zhezhe, things are getting more and more interesting. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's enormous black-scaled body spun in the air and murmured, but the domain of gods isn't something these ants can pry into. However, one of those brats merged with the evil god crystal, and the other revived a demigod. I can't underestimate them. Chapter 840. Next to the fake mountain, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng, who had both broken through, consolidated their cultivation for another half a day before heading toward the depths of Xiayang Palace. Because they had spent 3 days breaking through, they might be behind the geniuses and elites of other forces. Whoosh! Whoosh! A layer of silver and purple light covered the two as they flashed through the air at a shocking speed. As they went deeper, they found some treasures that were tempting. Some of the most ordinary items in the god's mansion were extremely difficult to come by for the experts from the outside world. Some even dreamed of obtaining them. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng wouldn't stay for normal treasures. The two of them would only make a move on some extremely valuable and useful treasures. Half a day later, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng entered the depths of Xiayang Palace. In his field of vision, a vast group of pavilions and palaces appeared. The magnificent buildings were connected by corridors or bridges. The style of these buildings was mostly dark, with dark purple and dark red being the majority. In the center of the buildings, there was an amethyst pagoda that pierced through the clouds. It was made of countless amethyst jades. The purple crystal tower was extremely far away, but a terrifying pressure could be felt from it. The true yuan of some of the nearby outsiders started to tremble, and they didn't dare to fight against the purple crystal tower head-on. Otherwise, the pressure would increase exponentially. Wah! A handsome male in black armor spat out a mouthful of blood in a corridor, and his face was pale white. Young Sir Qi, don't fight against the purple crystal tower's power. An elder with a flowery beard exclaimed. The handsome male in black armor and the elder with the flowery beard were both Void God Realm kings, and the former was a domain-level king. This group came from Grand Duke Qi's palace, one of the 18 provinces of the Great Gan Lord dynasty. That purple crystal tower is probably connected to the core of Xiayang Palace. The power of each purple jade stone is at least comparable to a substandard god crystal. The elder with the flowery beard said in his heart. This elder was originally a half-step king from Grand Duke Qi's palace. After entering the divine illusion dimension in Xiayang Palace, he finally became a king with the help of fortune. In reality, most of the geniuses and elites that entered the divine illusion dimension had some sort of breakthrough. After all, the people selected by the major forces were either peerless geniuses or the best of the older generation. We've already fallen behind Sky Suspension Palace and the Imperials. The black-armored young Master Qi consumed a drop of the rare dew that he had obtained from Xiayang Palace, and his injuries quickly healed. Even his face looked better than before. Those from Grand Duke Qi's palace reorganized themselves and carefully explored the depths of Xiayang Palace. Along the way, the forces had also encountered some danger in Xiayang Palace. These so-called dangers might be very normal for Xiayang Palace, but to outsiders, they might be extremely dangerous. For example, the poisonous thorns of some plants or a puddle of stinky water in a puddle could kill half-step kings, or even kings. Therefore, as they advanced, the teams of the major forces remained vigilant. Swoosh! At this moment, a layer of silver and purple light enveloped two figures and arrived at the palace complex in the depths of the mansion. Purple-haired demonic duo. Those from Grand Duke Qi's palace roared in anger as they revealed expressions of hatred and panic. Young Master Qi and the bearded old man's faces were filled with hostility and killing intent as they chased after Lin Fan. Thieves! Where do you think you're going? The black-armored young Master Qi yelled. His face was filled with rage as he took the lead. Shwa! The silver and purple light landed on a pavilion. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng had puzzled expressions. Purple-haired demonic duo, you ambushed and robbed Grand Duke Qi's palace, and you even killed 2 disciples of Grand Duke Qi's palace. How are you going to pay for this? The bearded elder said in a deep tone. Ambushed and robbed. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng looked at each other and felt confused. Yes, they had robbed many forces in the divine illusion dimension. However, they didn't seem to have done anything to Grand Duke Qi's palace. At the very least, after entering Xiayang Palace, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng decided to take the high-end route and stop robbing other forces. No matter how strong Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng were, they didn't want to offend all the forces. Even if they weren't afraid in the divine illusion dimension, how could they handle the pursuit of the 3 or 4-star sects when they returned to the Lord dynasty? Right at this moment, the black-armored male and bearded elder from Grand Duke Qi's palace charged over from the 2 sides. Resplendent Sky Star. The black-armored male held a long spear in his hand. The instant he stabbed out, stars seemed to explode in the sky, and a bone-chilling aura passed through every corner of the dimension. That simple spear strike was infused with a cold and heavy spatial phantom. In terms of strength, this black-armored young Master Qi was close to Jiu Wuji's level. He had grown a lot in the divine illusion dimension. Child's play. A black-clothed young man with purple hair fluttering madly in the wind slammed into the black-armored young Master Chi along with a dazzling silver and purple afterimage. The silver and purple shadows faintly outlined an almost solid silver and purple space. It erupted with a demonic power that was enough to shake a monarch's expression. Boom! Whoosh! Two figures and two spatial domains clashed in the air. Not good. The black-armored young Master Chi screamed. His spear strike had been devoured by an evil and mysterious force. Immediately, a field of piercingly cold silver-purple wavy blades slashed over layer by layer. Weng ding! 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 Young Master Chi was forced back, and the cold starlight on his body dimmed by more than half. Marks were also left on his armor. If it wasn't for the protection of the armor that was close to a heaven-grade divine weapon, even if he didn't die, he would lose a layer of skin. At the same time, on the other side, the battle between Zhao Feng and the bearded elder also stopped. Fuck off. Zhao Feng's simple punch released a golden blue light that was covered in a layer of lightning. Boom. A heavy feeling could be felt in the air, as if a giant mountain had suddenly descended. Arg! The bearded elder who had just reached the void god realm screamed as his magnificent power shattered. He fell from the sky like a kite with its string cut, and his entire body was scorched black. With just one punch, Zhao Feng heavily injured the bearded elder with just the power of his sacred lightning body. Sai. The half-step kings from Grand Duke Chi's palace all took in cold breaths as their faces went white. In just one move, young Master Chi and the bearded elder were both instantly defeated. The Void God Realm bearded elder was injured by the purple-haired Great Origin Core Realm youth with just one punch. Those from Grand Duke Chi's palace, if you don't give me an explanation, don't even think about leaving. Nan Gongxing snickered coldly. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing felt weird when they were suddenly attacked by Grand Duke Chi's palace. Purple-haired demonic duo. We're all on the same boat right now, but you're still so stubborn and still dare to attack humans. The bearded elder sat up from the ground and said with a sorrowful expression. Attack? When did we attack? Nan Gongxing scolded. Zhao Feng's eyebrows furrowed as he stood on the side and started to think. Don't try to act dumb. 2 days ago, when Grand Duke Chi's palace was trying to obtain the Sky Dew precious water, we were attacked by you. It's those two bastards. We can recognize them even if they're turned to dust. Those from Grand Duke Chi's palace were enraged. Everyone was sure that the purple-haired demonic duo had attacked them. Humph. Purple-haired demonic duo. It's not just one or two forces that have been attacked by you. Right now, everyone has joined hands to eliminate you all. These people were filled with hatred and fear, but they didn't dare to attack anymore. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing looked at each other and felt that something was wrong. Purple-haired demonic duo. Hand over your life. Almost 10 figures flew over from the corridor not far away. One of them was a black-robed young man, while the other was a gorgeous blue-haired beauty. It's the Jiang family. Jiang Chen and the number one beauty of the Jiang family, Jiang Feixue. The people from Grand Duke Chi's mansion were delighted. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing had fought with the Jiang family before, so they were very familiar with each other. However, the number one beauty of the Jiang family, who had been plundered by Zhao Feng, had also become a king. Originally, after failing to kill the purple-haired demonic duo, the Jiang family had already given up on killing them. Furthermore, the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon had threatened them back at Xiayang Palace, so they were all in the same boat. Purple-haired demonic duo. The blue-haired, Jiang Feixue, gritted her teeth and said, not to mention that you took away my jellyfish essence. After you entered Xiayang Palace, you ambushed and killed one member of the Jiang family, injured 2 members, and stole the 5 profound heavy water that we obtained with great difficulty. Zhao Feng. Nan Gongxing. Before we resolve the Black Flood Dragon's crisis, we must first get rid of you two scum. Jiang Chen flew over and attacked Xiao Feng and Xiao Feng from the other side. Xiao Feng and his companion were still confused. They hadn't made any enemies after entering Xiayang Palace. After all, everyone was being threatened by the Black Serpent Dragon. Xiao Feng understood how to look at the big picture. Retreat for now. Xiao Feng and Nan Gongsheng both sensed something. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two quickly retreated amidst a layer of silver and purple light. Stop! Jiang Chen, Jiang Feishue, and the black-armored young Sir Qi all attacked at the same time. Boom! A bewitching layer of silver and purple light spread through the air. At the same time, a dominating physical force from a sacred body crushed down like a mountain and caused everyone's blood to tremble. Bam! 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 The three kings were all pushed back, and Jiang Feishue, who had just reached the Void God realm, was sent flying. Blood leaked out of her mouth, and her face went pale. The purple-haired demonic duo is becoming stronger and stronger. The faces of the two teams were filled with horror. The demonic duo seems to be holding back. The heavily injured elder with the long beard had a solemn expression as his eyes twinkled. Whoosh! 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 A while later, 10 to 20 figures floated down from the top of a pavilion on the opposite side. Sky Suspension Palace. Joy appeared on the faces of those from the Jiang family and Grand Duke Qi's palace. However, those from Sky Suspension Palace were one step too late. The purple-haired demonic duo had already disappeared like ghosts. We're too late, the purple-haired demonic duo seems to have sensed something and left early. The three kings of Sky Suspension Palace, Xianyuan Wen, Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge, and the female in robes, walked over. Coldness appeared in the eyes of the three kings. Humph. The purple-haired demonic duo's life is too long. They even dared to sneak attack those from Sky Suspension Palace. The female in robes had a cold expression. Everyone, don't worry. I will definitely kill the demonic duo. Killing intent and anger appeared on Xianyuan Wen's handsome face for the first time. All of a sudden, his eyes emitted a terrifying divine glow, as if it could penetrate the universe and destroy everything in its path. Emperor intent. This intent seems to be even stronger than normal emperor intent. The expressions of those from the Jiang family and Grand Duke Qi's palace changed dramatically. Those from Sky Suspension Palace weren't surprised at all. If it wasn't for the fact that Junior Marshal Brother Xianyuan purposely suppressed his cultivation, he would have become an emperor before entering the Divine Illusion dimension. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge said calmly. The Jiang family and Grand Duke Qi's palace revealed joyful expressions. With Xianyuan Wen, it would be extremely easy to take care of the purple-haired demonic duo. Chapter 841. Whoosh! Whoosh! A layer of silver and purple brought Xiao Feng and Nan Gongsheng through the corridors, bridges, and rivers in the depths of Xiayang Palace. With Nan Gongsheng's current cultivation, the power of his spatial techniques couldn't be compared to before. Especially in such a complicated geographical environment, the use of spatial escape techniques was like a fish in water. Zhao Feng's expression changed slightly as he sensed something. A powerful intent that seemed to be able to slash through heaven and earth suddenly appeared where they were fighting. The aura of this soul intent had reached the peak of perfection. Emperor intent. Nan Gongsheng was slightly late, and his face was filled with shock. The two looked at each other, and Xiao Feng soon calmed down and murmured to himself, as expected of a peerless prodigy from a 4-star superpower. Xianyuan Wen. He's also formed emperor intent? Nan Gongsheng couldn't hide the shock on his face. Xianyuan Wen was ranked 7th on the Great Gan Imperial Genius rankings. It was hard to imagine how terrifying the top 3 geniuses were. Of course. It was certain that if they could safely leave the Divine Illusion dimension this time, their rankings on the Imperial Path Genius rankings would increase. It's not just emperor intent. He's already a complete Void God Realm Emperor. Zhao Feng sighed. When the dragon-shaped crater was formed, Zhao Feng inspected Xianyuan Wen and found that the latter's intent was extremely close to that of an emperor, and he was purposely concealing it. Void God Realm Emperor. Nan Gongxing found it hard to accept that Xianyuan Wen was only in his 20s. It was unimaginable in the Tsang Ocean. Even the left-eyed heavenly emperor Zhao Feng at his peak was only at the middle stages of the Void God realm. He had formed peak emperor intent, but he hadn't become a Void God realm emperor yet. Retreat according to the path I point out, Zhao Feng said in a deep tone. He could faintly feel a powerful aura approaching from behind. Zhao Feng didn't want to fight a Void God realm emperor right now. No one was willing to do something that didn't give them any benefits. Zhao Feng needed to find out the truth first since he was being chased by so many forces. Who the hell is impersonating us? A sharp light flashed through Zhao Feng's eyes. Ever since he entered the divine illusion dimension, a rare hint of anger appeared on his face. Previously, the Jiang clan and Grand Duke Qi's residents didn't seem to be acting. Swoosh! The layer of silver-purple light increased the speed of the escape by another level. Puff! Puff! Along the way, Zhao Feng circulated his sacred body and soul Dao secret techniques to erase the aura he left behind when he retreated. In his previous life, Zhao Feng had gone from being chased to being the one being chased to being the one being chased. He had some experience in tracking and being chased. Not only did Zhao Feng eliminate the aura, but he also deliberately created an ambiguous aura. After the time it took to brew a cup of tea. Behind him, the powerful aura of a martial monarch was nowhere to be seen. Nan Gongxing let out a breath. No wonder his partner was the famous left-eyed heavenly emperor of the Tsang Ocean. He was able to escape from Xianyuan Wen so easily. The current situation isn't good for us. Almost all the forces that entered Xiayang Palace are against us. Zhao Feng had a solemn expression, and he didn't feel any sense of accomplishment. Nan Gongxing's heart couldn't help but go numb when he thought about it. In other words, the purple-haired demonic duo was hated by all the 3-star and 4-star forces in Xiayang Palace. If it was a normal group, they probably wouldn't be able to do anything. Who dares to impersonate us? What's in it for them in front of the Black Serpent Dragon? Nan Gongxing couldn't help but think. The first person Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing thought of was Jiu Wuji from Nine Darkness Palace. However, the conflict between them and Jiu Wuji was just about face and profit. It wasn't to the point where they had to fight to the death. After all, the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon was everyone's biggest enemy right now. According to normal logic, there's no need for anyone to do this. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled. Nan Gongxing nodded his head. Even the non-human expert didn't seem to have a motive to attack them. After all, fighting amongst themselves wasn't good for anyone. Only by working together would they be able to survive against the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. Maybe I know the answer. Zhao Feng didn't say anything this time, but his eyes revealed some information to Nan Gongxing. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon would be able to sense their conversation. Nan Gongxing couldn't help but think. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two landed near a bridge that was relatively low. Below them was a green river, and they could see fishes playing around. Right at this moment a group walked over from a courtyard not far away. I don't believe it. How could Brother Feng do something like this? A cold woman's voice came from the group, and it was filled with a firm tone. Xiao Yufei. The truth was right in front of them. The purple-haired demonic duo ambushed us from behind and crippled 2 members of the Duanmu family. One of them was my little brother. A male in azure robes said with anger and displeasure. The emotions of this male in azure robes fluctuated, and a magnificent power shone from his body. He seemed to have just become a king. Yu Fei. Duanmu Yu. No matter what the truth is, let's not fight amongst ourselves. The elder in green robes said in a deep tone. The group in front of them belonged to the Duanmu family, one of the 8 big families. Compared to when they first entered the divine illusion dimension, the Duanmu family had a new king. Of course, the one with the strongest aura was still Zhao Yufei, who was like a goddess of ice and jade. Her cultivation was close to the peak king level. Yufei. Zhao Feng's expression was grim as he stood under the bridge. This was unbearable. He didn't think that the fake purple-haired demonic duo would even ambush the Duanmu family. Seng. Zhao Feng's figure leapt into the air as he landed in front of the Duanmu family's group. Zhao Feng. Nan Gongsheng's expression changed slightly. He didn't think that Zhao Feng would reveal his identity. His figure flashed as he quickly followed behind Zhao Feng. One had to know that the Duanmu family had 3 kings, and Zhao Yufei's strength was immeasurable. Furthermore, all the forces had entered the depths of Xiaoyang Palace, so they could communicate with each other. Purple-haired demonic duo. Those from the Duanmu family were enraged and filled with killing intent. These demonic duo were just too arrogant. Not only did they ambush them earlier, they even dared to show themselves now. The elder in green robes' first thought was to calm the 2 down before sending a message to Sky Suspension Palace, the Imperials, and the other forces. Yufei. Zhao Feng stood in front of them and slowly punched toward the Duanmu family. In an instant, the hearts of those from the Duanmu family shook, and their minds became chaotic. The scene in front of them blurred, and they fell into an ancient illusion city that was covered in mist. Most of their senses were turned upside down, and their control over their bodies dropped dramatically. Even an experienced king like the elder in green robes could barely summon a defensive barrier and send a message through the soul, but it was like a stone sinking into the ocean. In just one palm, everyone from the Duanmu family fell into Zhao Feng's illusion maze domain. What a profound technique, Nan Gongsheng couldn't help but sigh. Only Zhao Yufei of the Duanmu family wasn't affected by the illusion maze domain. She looked at the elites of the Duanmu family, who were spinning around in a daze, and her pretty face was filled with shock. Your brother Feng. Zhao Yufei revealed a confident and joyful expression. The purple-haired youth raised one hand in the air and used the illusion maze domain to cover the other members of the Duanmu family. Yufei. Your Duanmu family was also attacked by the fake purple-haired demonic duo? Zhao Feng asked in a low tone. They're 2 people that look exactly the same as you. Zhao Yufei nodded her head and said. Hearing the word, fake, Zhao Yufei let out a breath. Can you see what happened back then? Zhao Feng paused. Once one reached the level of a void god realm king, their souls would become extremely strong, and they would be able to look back through their memories. Zhao Yufei waved her hand, and a purple screen appeared in the air. When an image appeared on the purple screen. At the start, the group from the Duanmu family was teaming up to deal with a patch of vines, and their goal was to take some fruits. The vines were extremely troublesome to deal with, and Zhao Yufei was the main force fighting against them. However, at the crucial moment when they wanted to take the fruits, Shua. With a flash of silver and purple, 2 purple-haired figures appeared. How is this possible? The expressions of Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng changed dramatically. This was because the 2 people in the image were the same as Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng. The 2 figures were extremely fast, but their general appearance and attacking style were similar to the purple-haired demonic duo. Immediately after that, the 2 sneak attacked and took the fruits. Because Zhao Yufei had to deal with the vines, the 2 of them succeeded. Brother Feng. Zhao Yufei revealed a pained and disbelieving expression as she sent the purple-haired demonic duo off with her eyes. Shua. The 2 purple-haired figures turned into a layer of silver and purple light that merged into the air with a flash and disappeared. So fast. Could it be that one of those 2 also specializes in spatial techniques? Nan Gongsheng was stunned. Just from the scene, it was impossible to tell that the purple-haired demonic duo was in disguise. They even merged into the surrounding space when they retreated. Unbelievable. Zhao Feng murmured. There were many geniuses and talents that entered the divine illusion dimension. Based on the scene alone, the two of them displayed 3 types of abilities. First, powerful disguise abilities. Second, spatial techniques, similar to Nan Gongsheng's. Third, stealth, which allowed them to merge into the environment. This might be the same as the first ability. Yufei, did you notice anything weird? Zhao Feng asked. Zhao Yufei thought for a while before saying, from the reactions of the other forces, the fake demonic duo is always robbing them at the most critical moment. At the critical moment every time. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng looked at each other in disbelief. It was very hard for them to grasp the right timing every time they robbed. I understand now. The answer in Zhao Feng's heart was becoming clearer and clearer, almost as if it was about to appear. Right at this moment, the figures of a group appeared in their sights. Yufei, we'll meet again. Zhao Feng's hand, which was in the air, suddenly retracted. Plop. Plop. Many people from the Duanmu family knelt down or became unsteady. Shua. Only then did the green-robed elder and company break free from the illusion maze domain. Where did the purple-haired demonic duo go? Everyone was still scared and didn't know what was going on. The green-robed elder and the azure-robed male had shocked expressions as they faintly saw a flash of silver-purple light merge into the buildings in the depths of Xiayang Palace. Chapter 842. Outside Xiayang Palace, the black destruction serpent dragon's black-scaled body spun in the air and occasionally slammed its claws onto the god's forbidden array, causing hundreds and thousands of purple and blood-colored threads of light to shoot out. Zhe, this game has only just begun. My pawns are starting to take effect. The black destruction serpent dragon had a playful expression. Through the mark of destruction, it could clearly see the situation within Xiayang Palace. From this angle, it was like an outsider watching a cage fight. At the same time, in a certain corner of Xiayang Palace, 2 purple-haired figures were hiding in a large tree. Our next target is Sky Sword Pavilion. The little sword saint of Sky Sword Pavilion isn't simple. We need to be more careful this time. The faces of the 2 purple-haired figures were the same as Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng. Right at this moment, an emotionless voice sounded in their ears along with a destructive dragon's aura, be careful. The real demonic duo might have already seen through your identities. Yes. Lord Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. The 2 purple-haired figures had respectful expressions. At this moment, the group from Sky Sword Pavilion entered a hexagonal metal building not far away. The 6-sided building was made of dark red metal, and it radiated a scorching aura before it even got close. Building of Refinement. The Heavenly Sword Pavilion's Whitebeard's eyes shone as he recognized the 3 words on the building. Hearing that, the hearts of the geniuses behind him shook. I seem to hear the call of the peerless divine sword. The Whitebeard closed his eyes and entered a profound state of the Tao of the sword. Suddenly, his white hair and beard fluttered even though there was no wind. His eyes shot out a divine light of sword intent that could pierce through the clouds. Who's there? The little sword saint with the white beard turned around without any warning. In a split second, a brilliant, dazzling, translucent sword aura surrounded the overwhelming, colorful phantom of sword aura. It pierced through the physical world and the spiritual world and pierced a tree behind him. Arg! What a terrifying sword intent attack. The hearts of the 2 purple-haired figures on the tree shook. In that instant, the Whitebeard's sharp face expanded in their vision, and the sword light that covered heaven and earth made their minds go into chaos. Hiss! The 2 purple-haired figures let out a muffled groan on the spot. Immediately, they turned into a silver-purple light and disappeared into the distant garden. Senior Sword Saint, those 2 seem to be the purple-haired demonic duo. A young sword cultivator from the Sky Sword Pavilion who had just advanced said respectfully. Just now, the power of Whitebeard's sword Tao was simply shocking. The invisible sword intent penetrated the material and spirit. Humph! They were just 2 clowns of the strange races. But I don't want to waste my life energy on them. Whitebeard sneered. With that, he led the people of the Sky Sword Pavilion to the hexagonal metal building called the Building of Refinement. The hexagonal metal building had black metal doors in the front and back. The pitch-black gate blocked the path of the Sky Sword Pavilion. There must be a peerless divine weapon in the Building of Refinement. If I can get a powerful sword divine weapon, I might be able to fight against the Black Jiao Dragon. Whitebeard said solemnly. The people of the Sky Sword Pavilion stopped in front of the Building of Refinement and started to study it. After a while. Another group landed in front of the Building of Refinement. This group was even stronger than the ones from the Sky Sword Pavilion. Great Gone Imperials. An invisible light flashed in the eyes of the cold female sword cultivator in black robes from the Sky Sword Pavilion. As expected. The figures of the 8th Prince, the 9th Prince, the 13th Prince, and company appeared in her sight. My sacred Emperor's sword can sense a powerful divine weapon sword intent here. The 13th Prince's eyebrows rose up as he inspected the hexagonal metal building. Screech. The spiritual connection mouse on Luo Zun's shoulder gave off an excited sound. Looks like there's definitely a great treasure in the Building of Refinement, especially a divine weapon of the Tao of the Sword. The 8th Prince started to think. In front of the Building of Refinement, the Great Gone Imperials also started to study it. One of the blacksmiths from the Imperials soon found the flaw in the God's Forbidden Array around the Building of Refinement. As I thought, if the God's Forbidden Array was complete, the aura of a great treasure wouldn't have leaked out and been sensed by us. The blacksmiths had a smile on their face. In a corner of a distant garden, that old bastard is too terrifying. Two purple-haired figures looked at each other with solemn expressions. Whoosh! Whoosh! With a flash of light, the two purple-haired figures turned into two non-human males. One of them was covered in blue scales and had a blue horn on his head. He seemed to be from the serpent dragon race. The other person was a male outsider. He had a pair of earthy yellow crystal horns on his head and a pair of green beady eyes. His entire body was covered in dark green camouflage, which blended in with the aura of the surrounding environment. This old fart's strength might be the strongest and most terrifying among all the outsiders. The Blue Serpent King Wei Jing said with wariness. He's too scary. The non-human male with green eyes said in shock, even an emperor might not be his match. Even my Thousand Changes dragon bloodline wasn't able to escape his eyes. There's no need to rush. It's not like this Whitebeard doesn't have any weaknesses. Although he was a peak emperor in the past and had a chance to break through to the mystic light realm, his lifespan has reached its limit. His soul life force has withered, and his cultivation has dropped. Any attack that's too strong will use up his life force and soul, Wei Jing said. Wei Jing said calmly. Wei Jing had heard of the Little Sword Saint's deeds in the past. It was definitely a miraculous story. When the Little Sword Saint first started cultivating, his state of existence and body were extremely normal. However, his comprehension of the Tao of the Sword had reached a terrifying level, and he became a Void God Realm King and an Emperor after countless years of hard work. However, the Little Sword Saint's soul and life force withered because he killed a Mystic Light Realm Sacred Lord. Now, the Little Sword Saint relied on his powerful sword Tao intent and some secret treasures to barely slow down the wither of his soul and life force. If he couldn't find enough heaven-defying items in the Divine Illusion dimension, the Little Sword Saint wouldn't be able to live for more than 3 years. There might be valuable treasures in the Building of Refinement. The two of you can't miss this chance. The Black Serpent Dragon's voice suddenly sounded in their minds. Valuable treasures. Wei Jing and the beady-eyed male looked at each other and felt their hearts beat faster. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's standards were extremely high. How could a valuable treasure in its eyes be a normal weapon? The Black Serpent Dragon's warning made Wei Jing and the beady-eyed male pause. We'll have a chance to sneak in when there are more people. If the little sword saint didn't attack us with his sword intent, we wouldn't be able to tell if it's real or fake. The beady-eyed male also nodded his head. With the black destruction serpent dragon's warning behind them, they were like fish in water in Xiaoyang Palace. However, just as the two of them were quietly plotting, a shocking scene appeared. That's... The beady-eyed male raised his head and looked at the sky. At the same time, the members of Sky Sword Pavilion and the Imperials in front of the six-sided metallic building seemed to sense something and raised their heads. Only to see, a faint purple transparent eye of heaven seemed to be embedded in this part of the void, looking down coldly like the heavenly Tao. The heart of the white beard from Sky Sword Pavilion shook, and he couldn't help but look at the eye of heaven. Even with his invisible sword intent, he couldn't see what form the eye of heaven existed in. This eye. The eighth prince felt that it was slightly familiar. Gee. The spiritual connection mouse on Luo Zun's shoulder trembled in fear as the eye of heaven looked down. In front of the six-sided building, the geniuses and elites of the forces fell into a momentary silence. The eye of heaven in the sky looked down with a mental energy pressure that couldn't be defied. Even the little sword saint felt pressured. In a faraway garden, what kind of existence is this? Wei Jing and the beady-eyed male felt the coldness and power within the divine light of the eye of heaven. Their hairs stood on end, as if the eye of heaven was purposely staring at them. Shwa! The camouflage light around the beady-eyed male flashed. In the next instant, Wei Jing and the beady-eyed male disappeared from where they stood. A few breaths later, the two disguised themselves as two small trees and hid in the garden. Humph! A cold voice sounded next to their ears, and it was accompanied by a wave of mental energy pain. Wei Jing and the green bean-eyed man's foreheads were dripping with sweat. Shwa! Luckily, the eye of heaven only paused for a couple of seconds, as if it was just looking down from the sky. Lord Black Serpent Dragon, what is that eye? The beady-eyed male couldn't help but ask as his hairs stood on end. The eye of heaven didn't seem to have any offensive abilities, but it gave them a strong sense of danger and pressure. Ant, you're courting death. The enraged roar of the black destruction serpent dragon sounded next to their ears. Wei Jing and the beady-eyed male felt their blood shake. The source of the voice came from the black destruction serpent dragon. Next to the god's forbidden array in Xiaoyang Palace, Shua. A transparent purple eye of heaven faced off with the black destruction serpent dragon on the other side of the god's forbidden array. Mental energy spike. A transparent purple spike shot out of the eye of heaven and pierced into the black destruction serpent dragon's soul. The black destruction serpent dragon didn't move, but it was enraged. A measly ant dared to attack the mighty destruction race. Boom! The black destruction serpent dragon slashed out with its claws, but it was blocked by the god's forbidden array. The god's forbidden array was very unique. Attacks from the outside would be blocked, but attacks from the inside wouldn't be affected. Void Space Eye Slash. A 2-yard-long blade that radiated an immortal and undying aura of God Tribulation lightning pierced through the black destruction serpent dragon's head. Bam! Faint lines of blood appeared on the black destruction serpent dragon's head, but they instantly healed. Wu, the black destruction serpent dragon's giant body twisted in the air as it slammed into the god's forbidden array. Its roar of anger shocked the geniuses and elites within Xiaoyang Palace through the mark of destruction. Wei Jing and the beady-eyed male's connection with the black destruction serpent dragon was extremely close. Their blood boiled, and they almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Shwa! The eye of heaven only stopped for a few breaths within the walls of Xiaoyang Palace and attacked a few times before quickly fading away. As expected, the destruction dragon body. In a cellar within the depths of Xiaoyang Palace, Zhao Feng slowly opened his eyes. What happened just now? Nan Gongsheng heard the black destruction serpent dragon's angry roar, and the mark of destruction within his body felt like it was burning. He obviously didn't know. Zhao Feng had just used the Eye of Heaven to observe and grasp the situation within Xiaoyang Palace, and he had unleashed a probing attack on the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. Chapter 843. After so many years, Zhao Feng once again used the Eye of Heaven. He didn't do this to show off to the other forces or to provoke the unrivaled Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. He only had one goal, and that was to control the situation in Xiaoyang Palace. With the appearance of the fake demonic duo, the hatred of the other forces, and the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon controlling Xiaoyang Palace, Zhao Feng started to lose control of the situation. In front of a strong enemy, danger and fortune existed at the same time. This wasn't something he wanted to see. Through the Eye of Heaven, Zhao Feng could see the entire Xiaoyang Palace and grasp the general situation once more. Just as he had guessed, the fake demonic duo was indeed controlled by the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. If it wasn't for the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's guidance, how could the fake demonic duo appear at the critical moment every time and escape? Apart from Zhao Feng's Eye of Heaven, only the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon had the ability to see the entire situation. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon also controlled the situation in Xiaoyang Palace through the marks of destruction that had been imprinted in everyone's bodies. The difference was, right now, the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon couldn't directly participate, so it needed the Blue Serpent King and company to influence the situation in Xiaoyang Palace. Roar! Boom! Boom! The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's furious attacks became more frequent outside Xiaoyang Palace. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon might be able to enter Xiaoyang Palace in 20 or so days. Zhao Feng's eyes twinkled. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's original plan was to use these outsiders to act as its vanguard. After all, it was wary of the ancient god Xiaoyang. There were also many dangers within the evil god palace. What happened just now? Nan Gongsheng looked at Zhao Feng with surprise in the cellar. At this time, he realized that Zhao Feng's face was calm and confident, as if he was in control of the situation. It wasn't hard for Nan Gongsheng to guess that what happened just now had something to do with Zhao Feng. Let's take care of a small problem before we take action. Zhao Feng gave a faint smile. You mean, the marks of destruction? Nan Gongsheng immediately understood. Zhao Feng nodded and sat cross-legged. In the cellar. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng started to think of ways to dissolve the mark of destruction. In the end, this simplified world annihilation imprint is just a wisp of the world annihilation bloodline's aura. Nan Gongsheng, try to use the power of space and the evil god crystal to devour it. Zhao Feng said. As he spoke, Zhao Feng had already begun to dissolve the world annihilation mark. That world destruction mark contained an extremely powerful destruction intent. Fortunately, Zhao Feng had cultivated the wind lightning inheritance in his previous life, so he had a certain understanding of the destruction intent. The destruction ultimacy of the World Destroyer clan was related to the origin of the world. Pong! Buzz! Zhao Feng circulated the water of wind lightning and took out a green water sky lotus to use its purifying effect. In the depths of his body, wisps of crimson black aura fused into his flesh, bones, and even his soul. Zhao Feng's attempt had no effect on the crimson black aura. Outside Xiaoyang Palace, ignorant brat. Even this simplified world annihilation mark can't be dissolved by anyone below the demigod realm. The Black Serpent Dragon revealed a mocking expression as it paused for a moment. However, its expression changed right at this moment. How is this possible? The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon suddenly felt that the world annihilation mark on the other side was weakening. The source was Zhao Feng, one of the purple-haired demonic duo. When several hundred god tribulation lightning symbols suddenly lit up in Zhao Feng's purple soul sea and radiated a power that could shock gods and ghosts alike. The power of the god tribulation lightning merged into the water of wind lightning and started to eliminate the wisps of crimson black aura within his body. Luckily, I've recovered some of my emperor intent. Zhao Feng could control a portion of the God Tribulation lightning within his body. With his experience from his previous life, he was like a fish in water. The water of wind lightning was extremely compatible, so it easily merged into his flesh, bones, and even his bloodline and started to cleanse the aura of the Mark of Destruction. However, the aura of the Mark of Destruction was related to the laws of heaven and earth. Even the God Tribulation lightning wasn't able to suppress it. Zhao Feng's advantage was that he was the owner of this body. However, the Mark of Destruction was isolated and had no help. It could be seen with the god's spiritual eye. An hour later, Zhao Feng forced the aura of the Mark of Destruction into a small corner and sealed it by the water of wind lightning, which had merged with the God Tribulation lightning, and started to wear it down. At this moment in time, Zhao Feng helped Nan Gongsheng deal with the Mark of Destruction. In reality, Nan Gongsheng's talent in space and the power of the evil god crystal allowed him to threaten the Mark of Destruction. However, he didn't have the god's spiritual eye, so he couldn't clearly sense the aura of the Mark of Destruction. Pa! Zhao Feng patted Nan Gongsheng's shoulder. Instantly, Nan Gongsheng's senses shook, and the aura of the Mark of Destruction within his body appeared. This sensory ability. Nan Gongsheng's heart shook. Zhao Feng had shared the senses of his god's spiritual eye with Nan Gongsheng's body. Nan Gongsheng's blurry senses towards the aura of the Mark of Destruction became dozens or even hundreds of times clearer. He immediately circulated a wicked silver and purple light that enveloped the wisps of scarlet-black aura and started to devour it. When the evil god crystal within Nan Gongsheng's body started to tremble and radiate rings of purple light. The powerful aura even made Zhao Feng, who was next to him, feel suffocated. As expected of a true god crystal. Zhao Feng sighed in his heart. Most of the god crystals that appeared in the world were substandard god crystals, such as the god crystals used in the spiritual zone teleportation array. In reality, substandard god crystals contained limitless power. Zhao Feng's flying flaming chariot had a substandard god crystal embedded in it, and it had almost an endless amount of energy. The evil god crystal that Nan Gongsheng had obtained was even more unique. It was at least a true god crystal, and apparently, it was the product of the evil god's power of God. A while later, Nan Gongsheng successfully blocked off the aura of the Mark of Destruction and started to slowly wear it down. However, neither Zhao Feng nor Nan Gongsheng were able to dissolve the Mark of Destruction in a short amount of time. I need around 1 day, and Nan Gongsheng needs 2. Zhao Feng did a rough calculation. While dissolving the Mark of Destruction, Zhao Feng also paid attention to the inner circle of Xiaoyang Palace. In front of the hexagonal building of refinement within Xiaoyang Palace, the Imperials and Sky Sword Pavilion were trying to break the god's forbidden array within the building of refinement. Before this, most of the treasures that they obtained outside of Xiaoyang Palace weren't protected by the god's forbidden array. They were all extremely common things in god palaces. However, the building of refinement in front of them was different, it was protected by the god's forbidden array. Everyone, don't worry. The god's forbidden array within the god palace doesn't have much backlash. It's mainly used to protect the building itself. The array master from the Imperials said. Apart from the Imperials and Sky Sword Pavilion, the Duanmu family, Chao family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and some other groups had also joined in. There was more than one void god realm king among these groups. After entering Xiaoyang Palace, most of the geniuses and elites had obtained treasures. Right now, every member had battle power comparable to a king at least. They couldn't be underestimated. This old man's idea is to use an array to break an array. We'll create an array that's the opposite of the original and expand the weakness of the building of refinement. The array master said with a smile. Experts from all the forces that were proficient in arrays started to create an array in front of the building of refinement. Half a day later, a complex and powerful array was created in front of the building of refinement. Weng boom! A dark red flow of fire appeared on the surface of the building of refinement. Many of the experts in the nearby teams felt a burning sensation. Their mouths were dry like ants on a hot pan. If they stayed nearby for too long, even Void God Realm kings might be roasted alive. Luckily, the weakness in front of the building of refinement started to slowly expand. The teams from the various forces took turns to send people up to support the formation. We'll be able to enter the building of refinement in less than a day. If my guesses are correct, this should be the place within Xiaoyang Palace where weapons are forged and repaired. The array master smiled and stroked his beard. In a garden in the distance, two purple-haired figures merged into a patch of trees and observed everything that was happening within the building of refinement. We'll act according to the situation after the building of refinement opens. Strong anticipation appeared on the blue serpent King Wei Jing's face. At this moment, the building of refinement hadn't even opened yet, but it already radiated the aura of a weapon. The black serpent dragon had once said that there might be valuable weapons within the building of refinement. At the same time, in the depths of Xiaoyang Palace, in front of a dark wooden building, the geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace, led by Xianyuan Wen and the other two kings, stood in front of a door. Heaven's Legacy Mystic Technique, Open. Senior brother Zhuge drew a dark green water tadpole rune with one hand. The rune released an ancient golden light that twisted and fused with the door. Xianyuan Wen and the apricot-robed female each put a hand on senior martial brother Zhuge's shoulder. Creak. The door to the dark building was pushed open by senior martial brother Zhuge. Instantly, inside the pavilion, ancient books that were glowing faintly in various colors entered everyone's field of vision. The ancient books floated within the building like countless stars in space. There were at least several tens of thousands of them. Whoosh! 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 Those from Sky Suspension Palace quickly entered the dark building. Creak! Senior martial brother Zhuge carefully closed the door. However, no one noticed anything. When the last half-step king disciple entered the building, a transparent purple eye of heaven appeared in the air above the building. The eye of heaven flashed with a weird light, and it smiled faintly before disappearing from the sky. Within the cellar of Xiaoyang Palace, I've successfully resolved it. Zhao Feng suddenly opened his eyes. The scarlet-black aura of the mark of destruction within his body had disappeared. The power of the god Tribulation Lightning was indeed worthy of being Zhao Feng's killing move. Under the constant wear and tear, he was able to resolve the simplified mark of destruction. For the next half a day, Zhao Feng helped Nan Gongsheng resolve the mark of destruction within his body. An hour later, in front of the building of refinement, success. The dark red flames on the surface of the hexagonal metallic building dimmed, especially the area in front of the door. Boom crack. The black metallic door was pushed open by an invisible force, and the five-colored array in front of the building of refinement instantly shattered. Whoosh! The instant the metallic door opened, a terrifyingly hot aura of fire shot out, and a half-transparent dark red wind swept across the experts at the door. Arg! Screams sounded in front of the building of refinement. The bodies of some geniuses and elites that weren't prepared in time started to melt and turn into a pile of ashes. Chapter 844. Arg! That terrifyingly hot fire chi current poured out of the building of refinement's door. Amidst screams, 4 or 5 elite geniuses were melted into a pile of ashes, and dozens of half-step king and king warriors were burned. A newly advanced king from the Great Gone Imperials was hit by the gust of wind, and his charred body fell in front of the door. In front of the black metal door of the building of refinement, the Imperials, Sky Sword Pavilion, Duanmu family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and other forces all took this chance. Sai. Those experts who had escaped the calamity still had lingering fear in their hearts as they sucked in a breath of cold air. If they were hit head-on, over 90% of the geniuses and elites present wouldn't be able to escape. It could only be said that the people near the door had bad luck. Most of the time, the ones that could last until the end and become the biggest winners weren't necessarily the ones with the strongest battle power. Maybe they were just lucky. This old man was careless. The building of refinement hasn't been opened for too long, so the flames inside haven't been extinguished yet. Because the heat isn't dissipating well, there's a surge of heat inside. The moment the door opened, the fiery energy poured out. The array grandmaster from the Imperials had an uneasy expression. His face and clothes were also charred. If it wasn't for the 8th prince and the wrinkled elder protecting him at the critical moment, he wouldn't have been able to escape either. A while later, the heat inside the building of refinement wasn't as obvious anymore, but it was still as hot as before. No one dared to pass through the black metal door. It's best to wait for half a day and let the heat inside the building of refinement dissipate as much as possible. 2 or 3 array grandmasters present gave the same opinion. Through the black metal door, everyone could see a giant furnace inside the building of refinement that gave off a scarlet glow. Instead of calling this furnace a furnace, it was more accurate to call it an underground pit of fire. In fact, it was an abyss of fire. Even though they were far away, the light from the furnace pit gave everyone a suffocating burning sensation. Even after such a long time, this furnace can still give off such a terrifying heat. There were many elites of the older generation present that specialized in blacksmithing. The fire inside the pit of fire seemed to be eternal, and it overturned everyone's common sense. Perhaps, this is the realm of God. Everyone exclaimed in surprise, excitement and anticipation on their faces. Maybe they had already reached an important place in Xiaoyang Palace. Although they had obtained a lot of fortune before this, they were all very normal things in Xiaoyang Palace. Everyone, be careful. I can sense a forbidden flame within this furnace. Even a demigod wouldn't be able to escape unscathed once it erupts. The Sky Sword Pavilion's Whitebeard said in a deep voice. When everyone heard this, their hearts trembled. A power that even a demigod could not escape from unscathed, it was probably something at the level of a heavenly god. Time passed. The heat emitted by the building of refinement was gradually decreasing. Half a day later, the high-temperature flame energy that had accumulated for a long time had mostly dissipated. At this moment, inside the dazzling building of refinement, the light became a little softer. Inside, one could see some messy forging ores, broken divine weapons, and other broken pieces. Even though they were separated by a great distance, the aura they exuded still made everyone's heart palpitate. When everyone's divine weapons started to tremble for some reason. Even a small number of inheritance sacred weapons were no exception. The sacred emperor's sword in the 13th prince's hand hummed and trembled with excitement. Divine fallen metal. That's an ancient material that's sealed in a forbidden ground of the Imperials. The 8th prince was stunned. He recognized that there was a type of forging ore called divine fallen metal in front of the pit of refinement. This type of forging ore was extremely rare in the Great Gon Lord dynasty. Even the Great Gon Imperials only had a few pieces, and they had to be sealed away. This was just one of the many types of forging ore. Forging materials like the divine fallen metal could be seen everywhere in front of the pit of refinement. Of course. What was truly tempting was the broken divine weapons, broken pieces, and even half-finished and finished products in front of the pit of refinement. The aura of a world-shaking divine weapon seemed to come from the depths of the pit of refinement. Only the little sword saint, the 9th prince, Zhao Yufei, and a few others could feel the aura of what seemed to be a complete divine weapon in the depths of the pit of refinement. However, these auras had been silent for too long. They didn't even dare to touch them in fear of attracting an unstoppable disaster. After all, this was the building of refinement of the God Palace. It wouldn't be surprising if heaven-grade divine weapons or even legendary ancient god weapons appeared here. I'll go in and take a look. The little sword saint's eyes were filled with sharpness and determination, and he radiated a transcendental aura of sword courage that ignored life and death. Sang. With a flash of white, the white-bearded little sword saint was the first to step into the building of refinement. The geniuses and elites behind him were filled with respect as they watched the white-bearded little sword saint leave. Many people knew that the little sword saint's lifespan was reaching its end, and he was ready to fight to the death when he entered Xiaoyang Palace. Follow him. Sky Sword Pavilion, the Imperials, the Duanmu family, and the other groups carefully followed behind the little sword saint. Sai. Everyone's feet felt hot when they stepped into the building of refinement. Arg. The burning sensation made many geniuses jump up and down as they screamed. At this moment, the experts that cultivated the Tao of Fire or the Tao of Ice or the Tao of Water felt slightly better. The geniuses that cultivated the Tao of Fire had a stronger resistance against heat, while the experts that cultivated the Tao of Ice and the Tao of Water could effectively block and dissolve the heat. The temperature is too high. The 13th Prince of the Imperials felt unbearably hot. Although he had become a king in Xiaoyang Palace, he had never experienced such pain with his noble birth. It's too hot. Even emperors would be cooked if they stayed here for too long. The half-step kings had sweat on their foreheads, and their bodies were burning uneasily after just a few breaths of time. Within the building of refinement with the smelting fire pit as the center, the closer one was to it, the higher the temperature would be. At this moment, everyone had just entered the building of refinement, and they were only at the outskirts. They hadn't even entered the depths, let alone the furnace. However, most of the broken divine weapons and ores were close to the fire pit. Any one or two of these damaged weapons and ores would cause 3-star and 4-star sects to fight over them if they were to appear in the outside world. One of them was a very normal divine fallen metal, and the Great Ghan Imperials had sealed it away. The ones that were more valuable were the more complete weapons. We're close. The white-bearded little sword saint had a faint smile as if he had seen through life and death. His whole body was surrounded by a layer of dazzling sword light that looked like a white rainbow. He approached the smelting furnace step by step, walking in front of everyone. At this moment, the powerful sword chi from the white-bearded man's body made everyone's heart jump. Jiang! A soul-shaking sword hum suddenly sounded from the depths of the building of refinement. Everyone's soul, blood, and true yuan started to tremble. What a terrifying sword aura. The sword hum made all the kings and half-step kings feel as if their bodies had been pierced, and their footsteps froze. Everyone barely managed to look over. Near the smelting furnace pit, there was a rusted copper sword stuck in the ground. Everyone's eyes widened in shock. The rusty sword looked like scrap metal, but if one looked closely, they would find that it was made of an ancient material. Jiang! The rusty bronze sword was stabbed into the ground, and as it hummed, a peerless aura of the sword Tao pierced through the physical world and into the soul. Wah! Wah! Some geniuses who didn't have enough mental strength immediately spat out blood as their minds were injured. Plop! Plop! Adding on the high temperature of the building of refinement, a few half-step kings couldn't withstand it and fainted. How is this possible? The sacred emperor's sword on the 13th prince's body started to tremble. In the sound of the rusted copper sword, even the emperor's sword was somewhat fearful and fearful. Even a heaven-grade weapon can't make the sacred emperor's sword fear it. On top of that, this is just a broken weapon, and its power and spirituality have been greatly reduced. The people of the Great Qian Imperials were astonished. The 8th prince, the 9th prince, and the 13th prince exchanged glances with each other in shock. Being members of the Imperials, they obviously knew what the sacred emperor's sword meant. Even though the sacred emperor's sword couldn't unleash its true power in the divine illusion dimension, it was still extremely powerful. Ancient God Sword. This is probably a broken ancient god weapon. The 3 princes of the Great Ghan Lord dynasty came to a conclusion in shock. This conclusion caused the trio to feel even more fearful. When the grade of a divine weapon reached a shocking level, it would probably become a hot potato. Ancient god weapons came from the ancient era or even the immemorial era. How strong they were was only limited to the legendary era. A few thousand years ago, a substandard god weapon appeared and directly destroyed a 3-star sect. 3 Saint Lords died as a result. That substandard god weapon came from a 4-star power, Sky Suspension Palace. Exclamations sounded from within the furnace. Of course. The rusty bronze sword in front of them wasn't a substandard god weapon. It only had a wisp of aura left, but it was enough to make the sacred emperor's sword fear it. Outside the building of refinement, the aura of an ancient god weapon. 2 purple-haired figures were covered in a layer of silver and purple as they entered the entrance of the building of refinement. Purple-haired demonic duo. Some of the geniuses and elites that couldn't take it anymore and came out to take a breather couldn't help but exclaim with hatred and enmity. However, right now, the scorching heat and the aura of the rusty bronze sword within the building of refinement made most people unable to protect themselves. No one was in the mood to hunt down the purple-haired demonic duo in this situation of unprecedented benefits and danger. It could be said that the purple-haired demonic duo had come at the right time. Whitebeard, who was the strongest in terms of fighting, was completely focused on the ancient god's sword. He couldn't be distracted at all. If the little sword saint obtains the recognition of the ancient god's broken sword, he will be invincible among the outsiders. Although the chances of that happening are low, we still have to try. The 3 princes of the Great Gon Imperials were discussing how to deal with the threat of the ancient god's sword and how to obtain the god meteorite metal and other ores that were closer. At the same time, in front of a dark library within the Xia Yang Palace Group's group, the people of Sky Suspension Palace were immersed in reading ancient books that shone like stars in the sky. The aura of an ancient god weapon. Xian Yuanwen suddenly opened his eyes. A weird jade piece in front of his chest started to glow with a pure white light and tremble slightly. Chapter 845. Xian Yuanwen's heart jumped when he sensed the aura of the ancient god weapon, but he didn't leave immediately. He first told senior martial brother Zhuge and the apricot-robed female. The ancient god weapon exceeds our level by too much. Those who are fated will be able to obtain it. Senior martial brother Zhuge held his fan and smiled calmly. Hearing that, Xian Yuanwen nodded his head in agreement. If they had reached the level of a demigod and heard about the ancient god weapon, they would be impatient to fight for it. However, a weapon that exceeded their level by too much didn't have much meaning to most people. On the contrary, it was a hot potato or even a disaster. Of course, there was another important reason. This dim dark book pavilion itself was a great opportunity. Inside the library, many ancient books flickered with a faint light, floating in the air like stars. Each of these books is at least heaven grade, and some have even touched the heavenly divine realm. This book even has the ancient god Xia Yang's notes. The geniuses of Sky Suspension Palace entered their own worlds within the dark library. Each book presented a vast world. The profound knowledge listed in these ancient books was something that even geniuses from 4-star sects yearned for even in their dreams. Many of these books are comparable to the core inheritances of the Sky Suspension Palace, and many of them are even comparable to the core techniques of the Sky Suspension Palace. Some of them have even surpassed the current level of the continent. Senior martial brother Zhuge couldn't help but sigh. According to the layout of this library, the books here were only half open to the outside world. However, even then, Sky Suspension Palace spent a lot of effort to barely open it. One book, one world. Don't be greedy. Everyone should just choose 1 or 2 books. The apricot-robed female warned. Every heaven-grade skill or above was equivalent to an inheritance, and the knowledge within was like an ocean. Therefore, these geniuses and elites all chose books that were suitable for them and started to absorb them. Even for Void God Realm kings with photographic memory, absorbing all the contents of an ancient book was a very time-consuming and exhausting task. When the content was too large, even if they had photographic memory, it would take time. What no one knew was that, in the Sky Suspension Palace's group, there was a youth in silver armor who was a half-step king, and his eyes flashed with a dreamy purple light. A faint purple mark appeared between the silver-armored youth's eyebrows. This silver-armored youth was one of the weakest of the elites from Sky Suspension Palace that had entered Xiaoyang Palace. He had always been quiet. He was also the last to enter the Dark Library. At this moment, the silver-armored youth's actions were slightly abnormal. Whoosh! He quickly took out an ancient book, and a layer of purple light appeared in his eyes. In just a few dozen breaths of time, he expressionlessly took out another book from the sea of books. Nirvana art? Master. Xiaoyang. The silver-armored youth was slightly taken aback. Unlike the others who only focused on one or two books, the silver-armored youth had already skimmed through dozens of ancient books. It seems like this library was opened by the ancient god, Xiaoyang, for his servants. This, Langya skill, was a simplified version of his vast cultivation system. Even so, this nirvana art can be said to be a supreme evil sacred art in the outside world. The silver-armored youth's eyes flickered. If it was any other time, the geniuses of Sky Suspension Palace would have noticed the abnormality of the silver-armored youth. For example, the mental energy aura in his eyes was several times stronger than normal, and his expression was different from normal. However, at this moment, everyone's attention was focused on a certain ancient book. Schwa. 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 After the silver-armored youth finished reading the Langya skill, he started to flip through other ancient books. He read dozens of books in one breath, and his mind was very tired. He took out some resources and pills from his interspatial ring and ate them. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao. The apricot-robed female noticed the abnormality of the silver-armored youth and reminded, "I suggest you focus on reading one or two ancient books that are suitable for you. That will be of great help to you." "I understand." The silver-armored youth was neither hot nor cold. After resting, he started to read some more ancient books. Time passed by slowly. By the time most people in Sky Suspension Palace had finished reading the first ancient book, the silver-armored youth had already read more than 100 books, all of which he was interested in. By the time everyone had finished reading the second ancient book, the silver-armored youth had already read 200 to 300 books. At this moment, the silver-armored youth was exhausted. He found a corner and sat down cross-legged, consuming some spirit pills and natural treasures. "All right, we'll set off in 2 hours." Brother Zhuge said. When his gaze fell on the silver-armored Deng Chao, he frowned slightly, but didn't say anything. In a cellar within the Xiaoyang Palace complex, Nan Gongsheng, this Langya art should be a simplified version of Xiaoyang's technique, right? How's your progress? Zhao Feng opened his eyes, a trace of fatigue on his face. It's strange that I can easily grasp the basics of this holy nether art. My ability to use the evil god crystal's power has improved greatly. Nan Gongsheng was surprised. Why would Zhao Feng suddenly have this nirvana art? As expected. Zhao Feng was now even more certain that the dark book pavilion that Sky Suspension Palace had entered was a half-open book pavilion within Xiaoyang Palace. Right then, the contents of 200 to 300 Xiaoyang ancient books appeared in Zhao Feng's mind. Many of these Xiaoyang ancient books were comparable to the inheritances of 3-star or 4-star sects in the outside world. There were a few ancient cultivation techniques that could be compared to the Golden Kun's Sacred Lightning Body and the 5-elemental Wind Lightning technique. A small number of them were even slightly better than the Sacred Lightning Body and Wind Lightning technique that Zhao Feng cultivated. However, relatively speaking, the Sacred Lightning Body and Wind Lightning technique were a perfect match for Zhao Feng. After all, he had the foundation of wind lightning from his previous life, and he had merged the power of the god Tribulation Lightning into it. Furthermore, most of the Xiaoyang ancient books were wicked Dao techniques that weren't suitable for Zhao Feng. Although Zhao Feng wouldn't cultivate these ancient texts, they had greatly increased his understanding of the world and his level of cultivation. Through the group of books, Zhao Feng had a thought in his heart: he could merge all sorts of techniques and even create his own. On the other side, in front of the building of refinement, "Arg, I can't take it anymore. Several half-step king geniuses rolled out of the black metallic doors. The geniuses raised their smoking feet as soon as they rolled out from the ground. Some geniuses were resting in front of the doors, but their feet were all scorched black. There were also a small number of unconscious people that were carried out by the other members of the group. Apart from a small number of powerful Void God Realm kings, normal half-step kings wouldn't be able to last too long in the building of refinement. At this moment in time, the competition within the building of refinement was extremely intense. The one walking at the very front was still the white-bearded little sword saint of Sky Sword Pavilion. When the sword chi around Whitebeard's body was bright and bright like the sun. He didn't even look around as he suppressed the heat under his feet and approached the rusty bronze sword near the pit. Whitebeard didn't even look at the other pieces of the weapon or the stones that were scattered around. However, he had to overcome the unimaginable power of the sword Dao every step he took as he approached the rusty bronze sword. Every step forward was like a century of torture for Whitebeard. This rusty sword contains the remnant intent and intent of the ancient sword god. It might be able to help me break through my current bottleneck. Whitebeard didn't give up. All he cared about was this sword. On the other hand, the other kings put their focus on the legendary stones and weapon pieces. It wasn't that they didn't want to fight for the ancient god weapon, but they weren't strong enough. Amongst them, the purple-haired demonic duo was extremely eye-catching. Whoosh! The two purple-haired figures would disappear from where they were and suddenly appear from a corner. Half a day later, the purple-haired demonic duo entered the furnace 2 or 3 times and obtained several legendary stones and weapon pieces. They were like fish in water. Purple-haired demonic duo, die. The 13th prince was infuriated, and he drew a dazzling golden sword. Strands of dragon inscription sword chi surrounded it as it slashed at the two purple-haired figures with the might of a ruler. After becoming a king, the 13th prince's sacred emperor's sword had become much stronger. Its power and offense were comparable to an emperor's. This sword suppressed all the geniuses and elites present except for the white-bearded little sword saint. Watch out! The expressions of the purple-haired demonic duo changed dramatically as they quickly retreated. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two disappeared and reappeared on the other side. However, a bloody gash was left behind on the purple-haired youth's body, but it quickly healed as a layer of ice-blue light surrounded it. Are you alright? I'm fine. Every time the sacred emperor's sword leaves its sheath, it will instantly release the power stored within its sheath. In the divine illusion dimension, this power is greatly limited. The purple-haired youth let out a breath. If this was the Great Gon Lord dynasty, the power of the sacred emperor's sword would at least double, and the restrictions would be even smaller. If that was the case, almost no one present would be able to fight against the 13th prince. What strong defense! The strength of the purple-haired demonic duo increased again. The kings of the Duanmu family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and the Chao family were all stunned. During the battle, the purple-haired demonic duo had successfully fought against the Imperials and the other forces. What was different from before was, the demonic duo had mysterious and unfathomable methods of concealment. Once they retreated, it was impossible to find them. The demonic duo's strength increased so quickly, and they even stole our Duanmu family's spoils of war. The people from the Duanmu clan were also gnashing their teeth in hatred. At this moment, the demonic duo appeared and disappeared unpredictably. Among them, the purple-haired youth's physical defense was extremely strong. Even an attack close to the Great Emperor level couldn't pose any real threat to him. Yufei, the green-robed elder and the azure-robed male looked toward Xiao Yufei. As they fought, the purple-haired demonic duo intentionally avoided Xiao Yufei. Where do you think you're going? With a shout, Xiao Yufei leapt into the air and attacked, exchanging blows with the purple-haired youth of the demonic duo. Bang! Xiao Yufei was knocked back dozens of meters by an extremely cold and inhuman strength. She floated to the ground, a layer of frost spreading on her jade-like skin. Yufei, are you okay? Those from the Duanmu family immediately protected Zhao Yufei in case the demonic duo pursued her. I'm fine, but he's not Big Brother Zhao Feng. Zhao Yufei's face went red after she landed on the ground, but she spoke confidently. She had held back in the exchange just now because she was wary. However, the other party's attacks were extremely vicious and wanted to kill her. Chapter 846. Within the dark library of the Xiaoyang Palace Group. Let's go. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge held his ancient fan and said with a faint smile, we can try our luck now. Maybe the ancient god weapon is fated to be with one of us. Ancient god weapon? The geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace exclaimed in shock. The ancient god weapon from the legendary era had appeared in Xiaoyang Palace? This news was too big of a shock to everyone. The eyes of the silver-armored youth called Deng Chao twinkled, but he wasn't as surprised or excited as everyone else. Creak. The door to the library opened, and the people from Sky Suspension Palace walked out. The person walking at the very back was still Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao. Spatial movement. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao stood in a corner and had a respectful expression as a faint ripple of eye bloodline power appeared around him. Since the library was protected by the god's forbidden array, the people outside couldn't sense what was going on inside. Shwa. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao extended his hand, and several white lotuses that radiated a gentle aura appeared in front of him. The white lotuses had petals, seeds, and leaves, and their auras weren't ordinary. Green Water Sky Lotus. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao revealed a joyful expression as he put the white lotuses into his interspatial ring. He then quickly walked out of the dark library. He came out a bit later than the others, but no one was suspicious. This was because Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao's status and strength were the lowest amongst them. Let's go. The geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace quickly left. When the one leading them was Xianyuan Wen, and the jade piece in front of his chest started to sense something. Creak. After the people from Sky Suspension Palace left, the door to the dark library automatically closed, and the power of the god's forbidden array soon covered it. Shwa. At a certain moment, a calm male in azure clothes floated over. Although I know how to do it, my power alone isn't enough to open this place. The azure-robed male stood with his hands behind his back as he took back one hand from the door. Before, Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge, Xianyuan Wen, and the apricot-robed female had only been able to open the door. Among them, Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge also knew how to do it. At this time, the difference between a team and an individual was reflected. However, the azure-robed man wasn't disappointed or disappointed. He looked toward the purple crystal pagoda in the depths of the Xiaoyang Palace complex. The amethyst pagoda pierced through the clouds. It was the tallest, grandest, and most central building in the compound. However, the aura that this pagoda gave off was extremely terrifying, and it enveloped the entire complex. Even a king would be injured when facing this aura, and they would vomit blood on the spot. Swoosh! The green-robed man's figure flashed, and he headed in a different direction from the Sky Suspension Palace. There were many fortuitous encounters in the Xiaoyang Palace group, and many of them were discovered by geniuses from other forces. Furthermore, the geniuses and elites that entered Xiaoyang Palace only made up a small portion of the outsiders. There were still geniuses from other forces that were scattered across the divine illusion dimension. Inside the hexagonal forging building. Zhao Yufei. That purple-haired demonic duo is insatiably greedy, and they've attacked the Duanmu family time and time again. Are you still bewitched by that person? The green-robed male from the Duanmu family said in dissatisfaction. The eyebrows of the green-robed elder and company furrowed. It was obvious from the exchange just now that the purple-haired youth, Zhao Feng, had attacked Zhao Yufei. He's not Brother Feng. What you saw was a fake demonic duo. Zhao Yufei's voice started to go cold. At this moment, the Duanmu family's distrust and rejection made her feel sad. However, the truth was right in front of her. Not long ago, the Duanmu family had one death and two serious injuries, and it was all caused by the purple-haired demonic duo. Zhao Yufei was sure that it was a fake demonic duo, but no one believed her. Even the Duanmu family that she was from didn't believe her. How could she convince the other forces? Zhe, if the demonic duo team up, the world will be mine. The two purple-haired figures passed through every corner of the hexagonal forging building and laughed wickedly. However, the strongest of them, the white-bearded little sword saint, was attracted by the rusty bronze sword. With the strength of the ninth prince, Zhao Yufei, and company, they weren't afraid of fighting the demonic duo. However, the demonic duo appeared and disappeared like ghosts, leaving after one attack. Their powerful physical defense and their concealment techniques made it impossible for others to do anything to them. The people from Sky Suspension Palace are here. Some geniuses exclaimed outside the hexagonal forging building. Hearing that, the Imperials, the Duanmu family, the Chao family, and the other forces were both happy and worried. They were happy that Sky Suspension Palace was strong enough to easily deal with the demonic duo. However, they were worried that the group from Sky Suspension Palace was too strong. Whoosh! 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 Around 20 figures quickly approached the hexagonal forging building. There were 5 or 6 Void God Realm Kings in the group from Sky Suspension Palace. 3 of them had become Void God Realm Kings after entering the Divine Illusion Dimension and Xiaoyang Palace. Ancient God Weapon. The instant Xianyuan Wen stepped through the door, a Void God Realm Emperor intent shocked everyone present. Void God Realm Emperor. The hearts of the kings and half-step kings shook, and their souls felt pressured. Apart from the white-bearded little sword saint, no one else could compare to Xianyuan Wen's aura. Shua. Xianyuan Wen stepped into the depths of the hexagonal forging building, and he wasn't far from the white-bearded little sword saint. The white-bearded little sword saint was only able to fight against Xianyuan Wen in terms of mental energy and intent, and he might even have an advantage. However, in terms of age, cultivation, and state, Xianyuan Wen suppressed the white-bearded little sword saint. When perhaps due to the activation of the Emperor intent, the rusty bronze sword in front of the furnace pit suddenly released a green sword light that pierced through heaven and earth. In an instant, an ancient and cold sword intent filled the entire hexagonal forging building. The entire furnace was mired in a boundless, chaotic, illusory shadow of space. Wah! Plop! The power of the ancient god weapon injured the minds of many geniuses, and they spat out blood and fainted. Jiang! Jiang! The sound of metal clashing sounded in front of the furnace pit, and 2 auras that weren't any weaker than the rusty bronze sword suddenly rose. Boom! A bright red blade and a black notched axe suddenly woke up from the pile of broken soldiers near the edge of the furnace pit. These 2 weapons are more complete, and their auras are close to ancient god weapons. They're substandard god weapons. The eyes of Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge from Sky Suspension Palace flashed. Substandard god weapons. The hearts of the geniuses and elites present shook. Ancient god weapons were too high level for everyone present, and they were only limited to the era of legends and legends, even if they were broken ancient god weapons. Substandard god weapons were more meaningful to the geniuses and elites present, and the difficulty of obtaining them would be much lower. Hope shone in the eyes of the 3 princes. In the dynasties of the continent, substandard god weapons were a forbidden power. Every time they appeared, they would shake heaven and earth and affect the situation of the dynasties and sections. At this moment in time, 2 more relatively complete substandard god weapons appeared in front of the furnace pit. The crimson blade was only slightly curled, but it didn't have much damage on the whole. The black and heavy notched axe only had a few notches on its blade. No one knew what kind of battle had happened, but these 2 substandard god weapons were slightly damaged. When the rusty bronze sword, the curved blade, and the notched axe, These three peerless weapons radiated an ancient aura that filled the air. At this moment in time, various terrifying images appeared within the building of refinement. They passed through the soul and interfered with the physical world, as if time and space had been distorted. Every incomplete image that the ancient god weapons and substandard god weapons created was like the image of a little world. Tang! 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 Even some of the kings present were forced back by the aura. Anyone below the void god realm, retreat. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge from Sky Suspension Palace was the first to give the order. Half-step void god realms, retreat from the building of refinement. The Great Gon Imperials also gave the order. At this moment in time, the three peerless weapons within the building of refinement had awakened, and the aura they gave off could kill anyone below the void god realm. Only void god realm kings could survive in this situation. Amongst them, Sky Suspension Palace and the Great Gon Imperials had the most void god realms, and they had the advantage. Sky Suspension Palace had 6 void god realms, including 1 emperor. The Great Gon Imperials had 3 princes, Luo Zun, Elder Gumu, and a newly ascended king. That was a total of 6 void god realms. These two forces had a big advantage in the fight for the peerless weapons. Where have the purple-haired demonic duo disappeared? The geniuses of the Imperials, Duanmu family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and other forces instinctively looked over. They had to be wary of the purple-haired demonic duo. This was because the demonic duo would always attack at the critical moment. In reality, the purple-haired demonic duo hadn't appeared before the people from Sky Suspension Palace. At the same time, near the smelting furnace, on a big tree in a courtyard, 2 purple-haired figures flickered. Lord Black Serpent Dragon, are you sure that Zhao Feng will participate in the fight for the building of refinement? Zhe, if that's the case, then the humans will probably fight amongst themselves. The 2 purple-haired figures said cunningly. That Zhao Feng has already participated. An emotionless voice that seemed to look down on everyone sounded in their ears. He's already participated. Hearing this, the 2 purple-haired figures were confused. They clearly didn't see any traces of the real purple-haired demonic duo. In a short period of time, the 2 purple-haired figures didn't dare to enter the building of refinement anymore. They were waiting for the real purple-haired demonic duo to participate. At a certain moment, a silver-armored youth sitting cross-legged outside the building of refinement suddenly released a surge of king intent, and his soul aura became stronger. The powerful undulation of magnificent power shocked the nearby half-step kings. He's become a king. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao has become a king. Some of the geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace were shocked, and the half-step kings of the other forces revealed envious expressions. The person who had just broken through was the silver-armored youth that was at the bottom of Sky Suspension Palace's group, Deng Chao. Thank you, Master. Without your help, I wouldn't have been able to break through to the Void God realms so quickly. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao's eyes were filled with gratitude and respect. No one realized that when he was forming king intent, a faint purple symbol flashed across his forehead. No one realized that Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao had used up 2 green water sky lotuses petals and seeds not long ago. If some of the present half-step kings had 2 green water sky lotuses, they would have a 40 to 50% chance of breaking through to the Void God realm. If they had another Emperor-level intent, the chance of success would increase dramatically. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao fulfilled all of these requirements. He came from Sky Suspension Palace, a 4-star superpower, and was able to become a member of their elite group. His talent was comparable to some core disciples of 3-star superpowers. Chapter 847. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao, congratulations on becoming a king. The other geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace had complicated expressions as they squeezed out smiles and congratulated him. Although the weakest person in the group was a half-step king, no one would have thought that Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao, who had the lowest strength, status, and experience, would be able to become a king at such a critical moment. Ha ha ha. This is a great chance for me to become a king. We'll chase after him. Deng Chao let out a long laugh. He steadied himself and stood up. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao. The geniuses and elites of Sky Suspension Palace were stunned as they saw the silver-armored Deng Chao fly into the building of refinement. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao, you just broke through and need to consolidate your foundation. No one would have thought that Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao would rush into the building of refinement. At this moment, only Void God Realm Kings could stand in the building of refinement. In the air, the rusty bronze sword, curled blade, and chipped axe, the terrifying aura of the three peerless weapons filled the sky, and any wisp of their aura could create multiple images. In particular, the rusted copper sword was surrounded by a circle of cyan sword light that penetrated through heaven and earth, exuding an everlasting desolate aura. Every time the sword hummed, the overlapping shadows overlapped, giving a sense of twisting time and space and reversing yin and yang. However, the images in the air were only the remnant intents of the three peerless weapons. However, even someone as strong as Xian Yuanwen didn't dare to fight them head-on. What a terrifying aura and scene. Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao felt his chest become heavy after stepping into the building of refinement. He found a safe spot and watched quietly with a bit of vigilance. He was in a position to provide support from the rear. The kings of Sky Suspension Palace approved of Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao's actions. After all, he had just become a king. Apart from the ancient god weapon, two more substandard god weapons have appeared. Let's look at the depths of the building of refinement. A voice sounded in Junior Marshal Brother Deng Chao's mind. Understood, Master. Deng Chao replied respectfully as he looked into the depths of the building of refinement. At this moment, there was a faint purple glow in his eyes. Deng Chao felt that his sensory perception had suddenly increased by more than 10 times. In his field of vision, across the dazzling furnace pit, he vaguely saw an old weapon rack made of black metal. On the old weapons rack, there were a few inconspicuous items with quiet auras. At the same time, in the cellar at the other end. Arm guard, shield, 3 arrows and a shovel. Zhao Feng revealed a strange expression. The items on the weapons rack could be considered to be complete. However, they all seemed to be very ordinary. Through Deng Chao's vision, Zhao Feng didn't need to use the Eye of Heaven, which consumed a lot of energy, to know what was going on at the Sky Suspension Palace and the building of refinement. Among the many teams present, Sky Suspension Palace was a 4-star great sect, and its strength could be said to be one of the best. This was especially true after Xian Yuanwen became a Void God Realm Emperor. It could be said. Every action of Sky Suspension Palace affected the balance within Xiaoyang Palace. The fake purple-haired demonic duo had fled before the Sky Suspension Palace's group arrived, which showed how powerful they were. Even Zhao Feng was wary of Sky Suspension Palace. So, Zhao Feng was very daring and placed a spy next to Sky Suspension Palace. When Deng Chao was the last to enter the Dark Book Pavilion, Zhao Feng used the Eye of Heaven to use the Dark Heart Seal on him. At the time, Deng Chao was only a half-step king, so he couldn't fight back against Zhao Feng's Eye of Heaven at all. Furthermore, the Dark Heart Seal that Zhao Feng used had been improved. The original Dark Heart Seal completely enslaved the target, and their growth potential would be greatly reduced. After the pursuit of death, Zhao Feng had improved the Dark Heart Seal. The improved Dark Heart Seal didn't affect the target's growth as much as before. Zhao Feng even managed to help Deng Chao break through to the Void God Realm. This was what was happening right now. At this point in time, as long as Deng Chao was still in the building of refinement, Zhao Feng could see what was going on. In fact, through this improved Dark Heart Seal, Zhao Feng could even send a few wisps of Eye Bloodline power over and use a portion of the God's Spiritual Eye's power. Of course, the God's Spiritual Eye's power would be reduced after this, but it would be enough to deal with most situations. In other words, Zhao Feng hadn't entered the building of refinement yet, but he was indirectly interfering. Zhao Feng, when do we attack? Nan Gongsheng was impatient. He had been cultivating the Holy Lang technique for the past day, and his control over the power of the evil god crystal had become better. Although his cultivation was only at the late stages of the void god realm, the power of the evil god crystal's true yuan was much stronger than others of the same cultivation. Almost there. Zhao Feng closed his eyes. Through Deng Chao, he could see what was going on. The cellar they were in wasn't very far from the building of refinement. Meow meow. The little thieving cat suddenly threw the old bronze coin in its hand, causing it to ring. Okay, Zhao Feng nodded his head. Meow. With a flash of silver-gray light, the little thieving cat disappeared from the cellar. On a tree near the building of refinement, why haven't the purple-haired demonic duo done anything yet? The two purple-haired figures couldn't take it anymore. Before, they had successfully caused trouble in the cellar and offended everyone with the identity of the purple-haired demonic duo. As long as the purple-haired demonic duo appeared again, there would be chaos amongst the humans. However, even after waiting for so long, the real purple-haired demonic duo still hadn't appeared. The real purple-haired demonic duo has already dissolved my mark of destruction. However, the person controlled by the purple-haired demonic duo is within my sensing range. The black serpent dragon's cold voice sounded. What? The mark of destruction was dissolved by those two brats. The expressions of the two purple-haired figures changed dramatically. They couldn't help but think, if the purple-haired demonic duo had a way to dissolve the mark of destruction, then would it be possible for them as well? If they had no other choice, they could work together with the purple-haired demonic duo. This was a path of retreat. Humph. The mark of destruction on the two of you has been strengthened. Even a demigod will find it hard to dissolve. The black serpent dragon saw through their thoughts. The hearts of the two purple-haired figures went cold. It looked like there was no way out. The two of you both have the bloodline of the true dragon race. As long as you successfully complete the plan, I won't mistreat you. Becoming the servants of the destruction race and making the world tremble is the glory of many lowly races. The black serpent dragon smiled. Those two brats are very calm. We can only change our identities and enter the building of refinement. The purple-haired youth that looked like Zhao Feng suggested. That's right. Through Deng Chao's senses, I found a very useful and complete substandard god weapon, the misty spatial world. The black serpent dragon said in a deep tone. Substandard god weapon, misty spatial world. Hearing this, the hearts of the two purple-haired figures shook. The two of them had heard of this legendary, substandard god artifact. Most importantly, this misty spatial world is a support type item and doesn't have high requirements for the user. As long as you get it, you can use it. The black serpent dragon paused. Illusionary dragon, quick. The purple-haired youth had a solemn expression. Shua. The other youth that looked like Nan Gongsheng waved his hand. Shua. With a flash of light, the purple-haired demonic duo turned into two non-human males. One of them was a tall male with blue scales, the blue serpent king, Wei Jing. The other non-human male had a horn on his head, a pair of beady eyes, and his skin was dark green. Change. With a flash of light, Wei Jing and the beady-eyed male turned into a youth in blue and a female in green. The green-robed woman had an elegant temperament, and her beauty was otherworldly. Their auras were both at the void god realm. Zhe, as expected of the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon, ranked 12th in the Imperial Dao bloodline. The youth in blue nodded his head in satisfaction. The beady-eyed male had the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon bloodline, which allowed him to mimic and adapt to any environment. The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon could mimic any living creature or non-living creature it had seen before. For example, rocks, plants, insect corpses, etc. Of course. The mimic was just an illusion, and it didn't have the abilities of the main body. This was a unique bloodline technique that could even hide from divine senses. The Blue Serpent King was with the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon, so the mimic bloodline would cover him. Let's go. The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon flew into the building of refinement. Why are these two unfamiliar humans? Outside the building of refinement, the experts of the various forces who were resting revealed strange expressions. However, there were too many forces that had entered the divine illusion dimension, and it wasn't strange for there to be unfamiliar kings in the Lord dynasty. Just like that, the Blue Serpent King and the beady-eyed male walked into the building of refinement. The addition of these two human kings didn't attract the attention of the other kings within the building of refinement. Sang. The blue-robed young man and green-robed woman that the two of them had transformed into went around the three peerless divine weapons in midair and tried to go to the other side of the furnace pit. However, during this process, the two of them had to endure the extremely high temperature of the furnace. If it was a normal king, they would be roasted if they got close to the furnace. Are these two people trying to court death? Some of the Void God Realm kings revealed weird expressions of pity and mockery. The other kings set their sights on the pieces of the divine weapons or the legendary ores. Any piece of ore or divine weapon was priceless, and they would be of great use to their respective 3-star or 4-star forces. I see it. That weapon rack. The Blue Serpent King and the beady-eyed the other end of the furnace as they endured the terrifying heat. When a layer of icy blue mist surrounded the two of them to resist the high temperature around the furnace pit. Weird. What kind of bloodline ability is this? Even normal emperors can only resist the heat of a furnace so much. Xianyuan Wen and Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge from Sky Suspension Palace looked over in surprise. What was incredible was how the layer of icy blue mist barely lifted the two into the air. Although they couldn't fly, they didn't touch the ground. One had to know that there was a restriction within Xianyang Palace. Normal kings could only fly for a short period of time. Imperceptibly, their resistance to the high temperature of the furnace had greatly increased. This was because at least half of the heat came from below their feet. Look carefully. The bracer on the weapon rack is the substandard god weapon, the Misty Spatial World. The arrow is the god-slaying arrow, and the shield is the Golden Pond Shield. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's voice sounded in the minds of the Blue Serpent King and the beady-eyed male. Chapter 848. The actions of the Blue Serpent King duo attracted the attention of the elite kings present. Although the two of them avoided the three peerless divine weapons, the heat around the furnace pit was enough to turn normal kings into ashes in a short amount of time. Maybe Xianyuan Wen and the white-bearded little sword saint had the ability to do so as well. However, their attention was drawn by the three peerless divine weapons. Xianyuan Wen and the white-bearded man's target was the tattered ancient god weapon, the rusty copper sword. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge, the apricot-robed female, the 9th prince, and company were trying to obtain the curled blade, while the notched axe was the target of the Imperials, Sky Sword Pavilion, the Duanmu family, and other forces. Some of the weaker kings decided to lower their targets and fight for some of the scattered pieces of the weapons. I feel a familiar bloodline and true yuan undulation from that blue-robed youth. Zhao Yufei's eyes twinkled as she stared at the Blue Serpent King. However, at this moment, the Blue Serpent King had turned into a human youth, and even the aura of his bloodline had been changed by the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon. The strength of these two is only below Senior Marshal Brother Xianyuan. They probably have some ulterior motives. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge messaged. He gave up on the fight for the curled blade, and a mysterious tadpole-shaped flame appeared around his body as he approached the Blue Serpent King duo. Senior Brother Zhuge had an intuition that there was something wrong with these two people, or that they held some kind of secret. This Zhuge Yun seems to be suspicious of us. As expected of the brains of Sky Suspension Palace. The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon messaged. It's a bit troublesome, but he alone can't threaten us. The Blue Serpent King Wei Jing had an emotionless expression. The only people he was wary of in the hexagonal smelting building were Xianyuan Wen and the Little Sword Saint. Next was Zhao Yufei from the Duanmu family. Yufei, with your strength, you might be able to help the Duanmu family get a substandard god weapon. The elder in green suggested. Although the Duanmu family had 3 kings, only Zhao Yufei could be sent out here. However, the elder in green was a wood elemental king, and he was countered by the power of the flames within the pit. The other newly advanced king wasn't strong enough. Meow, meow. Just as Zhao Yufei was about to speak, a silver-gray line swept over from behind. Little thieving cat. Zhao Yufei was pleasantly surprised as she looked at the silver-gray kitten that suddenly appeared on her shoulder. The little thieving cat had always been inseparable from Zhao Feng. Since the cat had appeared, then Zhao Feng himself wouldn't be far away. Huh? The nearby kings all looked over with weird expressions. Meow, meow. The little thieving cat waved its paw a few times. You mean, Zhao Yufei understood the little thieving cat's intentions and looked in the direction of the Blue Serpent King duo. Immediately. Without any hesitation, a layer of purple light appeared around her as she chased after the Blue Serpent King and the little thieving cat. Yufei. The expressions of the 2 old men from the Duanmu clan changed. The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon were near the furnace crater, and the temperature there was enough to scare even emperors. Shua. At the same time, Senior Martial Brother Zhuge was covered in tadpole flames, and his feet almost didn't touch the ground. We're almost there. Substandard god weapons, Misty Spatial World, God-slaying arrow, and Golden Pond shield. The hearts of the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon jumped. Their gazes locked onto the Misty Spatial World on the arm guard. As long as one obtained the substandard god weapon, they would be able to use the Misty Spatial World. It could increase their strength for a short period of time. In comparison, the god-slaying arrow, Golden Pond shield, and shovel didn't mean much to them. However, the tattered weapons rack was on the other side of the pit, and the heat it endured as it approached was enough to threaten even emperors at the Void God realm. Whoosh! The icy blue mist around the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon started to boil, and the originally cold aura became hot. So hot. The 2 were enduring a terrifying heat, and their bodies became hot. The Blue Serpent King was slightly better. He had the Ice Serpent Emperor bloodline, which was ranked in the top 10 Imperial Dao bloodlines. His body was close to that of a true dragon. On the other hand, the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's talent was even stronger than normal true dragons. Although the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon also had the bloodline of a dragon, it specialized in the Tao of illusion, and its body was slightly weaker. Wei Jing, I can't hold on much longer. The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon was sweating profusely, and he was barely able to hold on. However, even then, their ability to resist fire was also better than Senior Brother Zhuge, who was chasing after them from the other side. These 2 don't seem like humans with such strong bodies. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's gaze became sharp. He couldn't get too close because his body and resistance to the flames weren't as strong as the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon. Zhao Yufei. Let's work together. The items on the weapon rack are definitely not normal. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge messaged. He purposely came from the other side and was able to attack the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon with Zhao Yufei. Sure. Zhao Yufei agreed. She maintained a distance, and her jade-like skin furrowed her eyebrows as the heat seeped into her body. Maintain the transformation technique. The Blue Serpent King suddenly moved forward several yards and endured a heat that even normal emperors couldn't handle. In that instant, glittering blue scales appeared beneath the surface of his body. The terrifying frost power of the Ice Serpent Emperor bloodline was unleashed. If it wasn't for the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon's protection, the coldness of the Blue Serpent King's bloodline would have startled everyone present. For a short period of time, the Blue Serpent King's battle power could challenge an emperor, and with its powerful body and bloodline, it was even slightly stronger than normal emperors. Go! The Blue Serpent King took a few steps forward and swiped its claw through the air, and a crystal-like dragon tendon appeared. Change! The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon immediately waved its hand and turned the dragon tendon into a scarlet gold chain. No! Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge's eyes lit up. A scarlet gold chain, but it gives off a faint surge of coldness. Ding! The Blue Serpent King's ice blue crystalline dragon tendon accurately grabbed onto the arm guard on the weapon rack. Substandard God Weapon, Misty Spatial World. The heartbeats of the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon sped up. This might be his only chance. If they stayed here for a few more breaths, the Blue Serpent King and Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge would probably be roasted. Right at this moment, something happened. Meow! A silver-gray line flashed, and a little cat landed on the ice-blue crystalline dragon tendon that the Blue Serpent King had extended. Of course, in the eyes of others, the dragon tendon was a scarlet gold chain. Little thieving cat! Zhao Yufei's expression changed dramatically as she exclaimed. The ice-blue crystalline dragon tendon was even closer than the Blue Serpent King. Even Zhao Yufei didn't dare to enter that distance. Whoosh! When the little thieving cat landed on the ice-blue crystalline dragon tendon, steam started to rise. Under normal circumstances, the extreme coldness of the ice-blue crystalline dragon tendon would cause a layer of frost to form on the surface of the little cat's body, and it would even turn into an ice cat. However, in this environment, the heat from the flames far surpassed the coldness from the dragon tendon. This meant that the little thieving cat had obtained a layer of protection. Meow meow. The dark gold necklace around the little thieving cat's neck turned into a lifelike dark gold dragon snake whip that shot towards the weapon's rack. Don't cause trouble. The Blue Serpent King's heart was in his throat as he prayed. If the little thieving cat tried to stop it, then the Blue Serpent King's attack wouldn't be able to obtain the substandard god weapon, the Misty Spatial World. If he failed this time, he wouldn't be able to resist the heat for long and would have to retreat to rest. Little thieving cat, be good, don't cause trouble. On the side, the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon also broke out in cold sweat. Luckily for him, the little cat didn't do anything after landing on the dragon tendon. Furthermore, its target wasn't the substandard god weapon, the Misty Spatial World, which represented the bracer. Meow! The dark golden dragon whip in the little thieving cat's hand accurately wrapped around one of the items. The eyes of the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon and Senior Zhuge, who were flanking him, widened. The little thieving cat's target was the unknown shovel. This shovel's aura was the quietest, and it didn't have any aura of a substandard god weapon. Success! The Blue Serpent King was overjoyed. He pulled the dragon tendon, and the arm guard landed in his hand. Meow meow. In the next instant, the little thieving cat also obtained the shovel. The Blue Serpent King paused for a moment before realizing that something wasn't right. This cat used the chains of the blue-robed youth as a foothold in the air, and it even used it to protect itself. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge's expression was very colorful. He couldn't help but cheer for the cat's ability to borrow power through the air. If the Blue Serpent King didn't have a foothold, normal emperors wouldn't be able to get so close and retreat. Damn it! I've been used by this cat. The Blue Serpent King's face twitched as he understood, but he couldn't hold on for much longer. Meow! With a flash of the silver-gray line, the kitten disappeared without a trace. Retreat! The Blue Serpent King met up with the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon, but they were surrounded by Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge and Zhao Yufei. Blue Serpent King, Thousand Changes illusionary dragon, get back here! Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge roared. Hearing this, the Blue Serpent King and Zhao Yufei's expressions changed dramatically. Senior brother Zhuge actually saw through the two's identities. Hee, it's you. Everyone, attack and stop these two non-human bastards. Senior martial brother Zhuge had a playful expression. The Blue Serpent King and Zhao Yufei were enraged. Senior martial brother Zhuge had purposely tricked them. It was obvious that senior martial brother Zhuge had only guessed their identities. Fuck off. The Blue Serpent King let out an angry roar and leaped into the air. A dragon claw covered in blue scales struck towards senior martial brother Zhuge with a whirling freezing rain of light. Mysterious fire shield. Senior brother Zhuge retreated. His hands turned illusory and formed a flame shield in front of him that was composed of countless tadpole flames. Whoosh! Near the furnace pit, the power of the profound flame shield increased greatly with the help of the enormous flame power. It was almost twice as strong as usual. Senior martial brother Zhuge's secret technique allowed him to use the power of the environment to the extreme. Boom! The Blue Serpent King's powerful attack only pushed senior martial brother Zhuge back a few steps, but it didn't hurt him. At the same time, a shout came from the side. Zhao Yufei and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon were fighting. Go! A dark green shadow of a dragon roared out from behind the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon. Whoosh! As the shadow of the dragon charged into the air, it released a 5-colored transparent light that seeped into the soul dimension. That's, Zhao Yufei's mind shook. As the shadow of the dragon attacked, it created layers of illusions that were similar to Zhao Feng's illusion maze domain. In that instant, Zhao Yufei's senses went haywire. Watch out! The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon is ranked 10th on the Imperial Genius ranking, just below Xianyuan Wen and the Blue Serpent King. The green-robed elder from the Duanmu family felt his heart jump out of his throat. Chapter 849. Watch out, Yufei. The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon is ranked 10th on the Imperial Genius rankings, just below Xianyuan Wen and the Blue Serpent King. The green-robed elder couldn't help but warn. The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon had a rare transformation bloodline. Not only could it transform into all kinds of objects, it could also unleash powerful illusions. It could be said that the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon's bloodline had a unique domain of illusions. The moment they clashed, Zhao Yufei's senses were slightly affected. The purple-haired youth's attack contained layers of illusions and shadows that even distorted the surrounding environment. The high temperature of the building of refinement was gradually replaced by a familiar courtyard. This is the Zhao clan. Zhao Yufei's heart shook. The purple-haired youth opposite her smiled mysteriously as his face became blurry and then turned into a determined youth. This was the Zhao Feng of his youth that only existed in his memories. It wasn't just the external environment that had changed. Even Zhao Yufei herself had turned into a slender and elegant young girl. Vaguely, the memories of a young man and a young girl sparring in the courtyard flashed before his eyes. Bam! Zhao Yufei and the young Zhao Feng, in front of her, exchanged palms. She grunted and took a few steps back. She was at a disadvantage. The difference in strength between the two wasn't big, but the young Zhao Feng had the upper hand. Zhao Yufei wasn't the only one who felt this way. In the eyes of others, Zhao Yufei and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon had become the young Zhao Yufei and Zhao Feng. The surroundings had turned into the courtyard of the Zhao clan in Sun Feather City. All of this was distorted by the shapeless illusions of the Tao of illusions, causing the fake to be mistaken for the real one. Yufei! The green-robed elder and the Duanmu family elder exclaimed. The direction in which Zhao Yufei was being forced back was the bright crimson pit. Even a martial emperor would be unable to escape if they fell into the pit. Bang! Bang! In the blink of an eye, Zhao Yufei and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon clashed more than a dozen times. Layers of illusory light and shadows distorted the environment and subverted the senses. He watched as Zhao Yufei retreated step by step towards the furnace pit. Brother Zhao Feng, Zhao Yufei's eyes were misty and her expression was complicated. She seemed to recall her past memories. Die. The 1,000 transformations illusionary dragon sneered, and a layer of dark green camouflage light surged from his fist as he punched Zhao Yufei's porcelain-like face. Unfortunately, you are not. Within his field of vision, the eyes of the peerlessly beautiful woman in a violet dress suddenly turned cold, and a cold light appeared. An intense cold killing intent appeared on Zhao Yufei's body. Buzz. In a flash, Zhao Yufei's skin was as clear as crystal and gave off a layer of glorious purple light. A vast bloodline power caused the many different powers inside the building of refinement to throb and become chaotic. At this instant, both the Void God Realm kings and emperors felt their cultivation techniques shake, and a portion of them even disappeared. What's going on? On the other side, Xianyuan Wen's magnificent power and true yuan started to fluctuate. Bam! A non-human male in dark green camouflage was pushed back dozens of yards by Zhao Yufei with a wave of her hand, and blood leaked from the corner of his mouth. At the same time, in Zhao Yufei's vision, the distorted light and shadow illusion disappeared without a trace. As expected of someone with the spiritual race bloodline. The non-human male squinted his bead-like eyes as he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and flipped through the air to meet up with Wei Jing. In that instant, Zhao Yufei had activated her spiritual race bloodline, and even someone as strong as the 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon, ranked 10th on the Imperial Genius rankings, was injured. Of course. The 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon walked the Tao of Illusion, and his ability to fight head-on was slightly weaker than the Blue Serpent King, who was ranked 9th, retreat. The 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon disappeared after meeting up with the Blue Serpent King Wei Jing. Block the door. That's the 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon's innate talent in concealment. Senior Martial Brother Zhuge's expression changed slightly. 2 sharp white lights shot out from his eyes, but he was only barely able to catch a glimpse of the 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon. Only a powerful eye bloodline like the Ji family's purple star eyes could counter the 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon's concealment. Unfortunately, no one from the Ji family had entered the building of refinement, and there weren't any eye bloodlines present. In reality, the 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon didn't have any spatial abilities, but he could simulate various scenes and auras. This was why he was able to simulate the purple-haired demonic duo with the Blue Serpent King. How dare you pretend to be Big Brother Zhao Feng? I won't let you go. A hint of anger appeared on Zhao Yufei's face. She unleashed the senses of her spiritual race bloodline to the maximum and caught a faint trace of an aura, which she chased after as well. However, only Zhao Yufei and Senior Martial Brother Zhuge were truly participating in the pursuit. The other kings were unable to catch the 1,000 Changes Illusionist Dragon's tracks. Xianyuan Wen and the Little Sword Saint also had the ability to do so, but at this moment, the fight for the rusty bronze sword had reached its final stage. The sword light around the white beard was as bright as the sun. There was a sword intent in his eyes that made him forget about life and death. With every step he took, he abandoned his path of retreat. Even facing the aura of the ancient god's sword, the white beard didn't retreat at all. When the rusted copper sword in the air suddenly slashed out an earth-shattering cyan sword aura. It carried an ancient and cold sword intent and slashed at the white-bearded Little Sword Saint. Wah! The white beard spat out a mouthful of blood as he fell into a chaotic sword light. Senior Sword Saint. The cold black-robed girl from Sky Sword Pavilion couldn't help but exclaim. If the heavens want me to die, so what if I die? The white beard roared into the sky, and the white sword light around him shattered under the attack of the rusty bronze sword. That sword had slashed away almost all of his life force and yuan qi. The white beard's true yuan of life started to wither, and his skin started to dry up, turning body into a sword. Whitebeard's entire body suddenly burst into flames, turning into a huge sword aura that was as bright as the sun, rushing towards the ancient god artifact rusted copper sword. At this moment, the entire building of refinement was covered by the dazzling sword light that abandoned everything. Even the flames in the furnace pit seemed slightly dim. Even someone as strong as Xianyuan Wen revealed a complicated and respectful expression. What terrifying power of the sword Dao! It can probably instantly kill emperors and even threaten mystic light realm's sacred lords. The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon trembled. The aura of the sword Dao made them feel fear. At this moment, the only thing left in the furnace was the bright sword light that suppressed everything. This sword light contained the intent of the sword Dao that the Whitebeard had accumulated over his entire life. When the rusty bronze sword in the air released a green whirlpool of sword light, and space around it became chaotic as a limitless world of overlapping images appeared. Shwa! The sword light that the Whitebeard had turned into stabbed into the whirlpool of sword light, and the surrounding overlapping images started to twist. Time seemed to freeze in that instant. The sword light around the Whitebeard's body merged together with the whirlpool of sword light from the ancient god weapon, and the two maintained a balance. Looking over, it was as if two divine swords were absorbing each other in the air. One of the swords was formed by the Whitebeard. Who the kings within the building of refinement had shocked expressions as they looked at the scene of balance. As long as there is a slight mistake, Whitebeard will be beyond redemption. At the same time, Zhao Yufei and senior marshal brother Zhuge followed the trail and arrived in front of the entrance of the building of refinement. Seal the entrance. There were already 5 or 6 Void God Realm kings in front of the entrance, including the 2 kings from the Duanmu family and junior marshal brother Deng Chao from Sky Suspension Palace. Wang's 6 surges of magnificent power condensed into a spatial domain and formed a 5-colored whirlpool of light. The resistance formed by the 6 monarchs could even stop an emperor for a while. Woo boom! An ice flood dragon covered in blue scales charged over, bringing with it a terrifying freezing rain of blue ice. A huge ice dragon's sharp claws slammed into the 5-colored whirlpool barrier. Boom! The 5-colored barrier formed by the 6 kings started to dim, and it would shatter after 1 or 2 more hits. However, this gave the other experts a chance. Don't let those 2 non-humans escape. Outside the refinement building, a few half-step kings who were resting joined the camp of the 6 kings. Mystic Secret Array. Senior marshal brother Zhuge opened the fan in his hand and shot into the air. Dense silver chains of lightning wrapped around the Blue Serpent King and company. Whoosh! At the same time, a streak of purple light that was as dazzling as a meteor, bringing with it a vast amount of yuan qi and heavenly might, charged over from behind. Both the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon shuddered under the impact of the tremendous power. A shout sounded from within the purple light, and one could faintly see a female in a purple dress. Stop! The woman in violet lightly pressed down with her hand, and a corporeal purple space giving off a majestic and boundless power covered the Blue Flood Dragon King and the Blue Flood Dragon King. Little world. The expressions of the Blue Serpent King and company changed dramatically. At this moment, the 2 non-human experts were surrounded and pincered by many kings. Zhao Yufei and senior marshal brother Zhuge were at least in the top 20 of the Imperial Genius rankings, and their battle power was even close to the top 10. If this dragged on for too long, the Blue Serpent King and company would be surrounded by the other kings and half-step kings. At this moment, the Blue Serpent King and company had fallen into a quagmire, and they were in danger. You 2 idiots, why aren't you using the power of a substandard god weapon? A voice that despised the common people sounded in their ears. As soon as the voice finished speaking, Shwa! A layer of white mist enshrouded the Blue Wyrm King and the Blue Wyrm King. The mysterious phantom image even squeezed and pushed Zhao Yufei's small world away. The kings and half-step kings near the door were covered by the white mist and instantly felt dizzy. Watch out! This is the power of the substandard god weapon, the misty spatial world. It has its own little world and unique spatial abilities. Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge exclaimed. Shua! The white mist-shrouded spatial phantom suddenly shrank and turned into a swirling mass of white mist-like chi. Everyone was stunned. They could only watch as the swirling white mist became smaller and smaller in front of their eyes. Finally, it evaporated into thin air. This is the power of a substandard god weapon. The kings and half-step kings present seemed to wake up from a dream. Chase! Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge's divine sense caught a ball of white mist that had just formed in the forest. Ha ha ha, with the misty spatial world, we won't be afraid of group battles anymore. Even 1 or 2 emperors won't be able to do anything to us. The Blue Serpent King and company's figures slowly appeared from the white mist. The Blue Serpent King and company had disdainful expressions as they looked at Senior Marshal Brother Zhuge and company chasing after them. The two were even considering if they should go back and kill their way back. However, right at this moment a faint voice sounded from the tree in front of them. The 2 of you were indeed able to break through the encirclement. It wasn't a waste for me to wait here. Who's there? The Blue Serpent King and company were stunned as they looked at a purple-haired youth sitting on the tree with his eyes closed. Chapter 850. In front of the hexagonal smelting building. The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon have obtained the misty spatial world. Don't let them escape. These 2 outsiders actually stole a substandard god weapon right under everyone's noses. The 6 kings and the 20 or 30 half-step kings were shocked, and their faces were filled with anger and unwillingness. After all, the people in the building of refinement were all geniuses and elites of the human race, yet the 2 foreign tribes had succeeded. The biggest failure of all was that the Blue Wyrm King and the Black Wyrm King had still managed to escape despite being surrounded by so many people. Chase! Some of the kings and half-step kings present were unwilling to give up and chased after him. The 2 people in the front were still Zhao Yufei and Senior Brother Zhuge. However, Junior Brother Deng Chao, who had just become a king not long ago, didn't chase after them. Yes, Master. Junior Brother Deng Chao turned around and returned to the building of smelting to continue observing the situation. Most of the remaining kings and half-step kings chased after them. Among them, the Duanmu family, the Chao family, and Grand Duke Yuan's estate had all sent their kings. Apart from that, there was a king among the crowd who had just arrived. He was a man with thick eyebrows. This thick-eyebrowed man was Gu Chaozhi, the king genius of the 3-star Sect Earth Spirit Hall that Zhao Feng had met earlier in the underground city. Gu Chaozhi had entered Xiayang Palace later and only brought 4 half-step kings with him. However, they were threatened by the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon as soon as they got close to Xiayang Palace. Substandard God Artifact. I didn't think that there would be such a powerful treasure in Xiayang Palace. Gu Chaozhi was excited. For an ordinary person, being able to see a substandard god artifact was a dream that was hard to come true. Let's go take a look. Gu Chaozhi didn't have much hope, but he still had a glimmer of hope. After all, substandard god artifacts and ancient god artifacts were taboo items that belonged to the fated. Zeng! Zeng! Whoosh! With Senior Brother Zhuge, Zhao Yufei, and the others in the lead, dozens of kings and half-step kings chased into the distant forest. Senior Brother Zhuge noticed from afar that the Blue Flood Dragon King and his companion had suddenly stopped moving after appearing in the forest. In the forest. As expected, the 2 of you were able to break through the encirclement. It was not in vain that I waited here for so long. The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon stared at the purple-haired youth sitting on the tree in shock. However, when the 2 saw that the newcomer was only a great origin core realm youth, they couldn't help but burst into laughter with disdain. Even if that youth was one of the purple-haired demonic duo. The Blue Serpent King and company became much more confident after obtaining the misty spatial world. Just now, even with so many experts and formidable enemies blocking their way, the two of them still managed to break through the encirclement. Why would they be afraid of a mere youth? The Blue Serpent King was even thinking about using the advantage of the misty spatial world to play with the human geniuses. Perhaps, he might even be able to kill his way back and obtain another substandard god artifact, or even an ancient god artifact. Ha ha ha. Purple-haired brat, I let you get away with it last time. You must be tired of living to have delivered yourself to my doorstep. The Blue Serpent King let out a long roar, and its powerful bloodline power covered the nearby trees in a layer of frost. Even though there were still figures chasing after it, the Blue Wyrm King wasn't afraid at all. He faintly glanced at the substandard god bracer on his arm and calmed down. This substandard god artifact was the same as having a powerful little world, and it also had some spatial abilities. Brother Feng. Zhao Yufei, who was running toward the forest, had a grim expression. She had experienced how terrifying the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon were. If they teamed up, they could definitely fight against an emperor. After obtaining the substandard god artifact, they were like tigers that had grown wings. It's Xiao Feng. The eyes of Gu Chaoji of Earth's Spirit Hall were wide open as he chased after Qin Lai. It's one of the purple-haired demonic duo, Xiao Feng. The kings and half-step kings from the Duanmu family, Chao family, Grand Duke Yuan's palace, and other forces all recognized Xiao Feng. This youth hadn't even reached the Void God realm, but he was facing the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon. Everyone couldn't help but sweat for him. It's over. At this moment, the purple-haired youth on the tree slowly opened his eyes. At that instant, the hearts of the Blue Serpent King and the others behind them shook. Maybe it was because of the youth's calm tone. Or maybe it was because they realized that the youth had only just opened his eyes, and it seemed like he had been waiting for a long time. In front of the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon, this youth was so calm and casual. The other member of the purple-haired demonic duo, Nan Gongsheng, appeared from behind and didn't seem to be planning on doing anything. Xiao Feng, can you really fight against these two by yourself? Nan Gongsheng couldn't help but ask. After all, he had just seen the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon break through the encirclement of the kings. Before he even finished speaking, the situation changed. Gaze of the gods. Eye. A surge of purple eye bloodline power surged from the youth's left eye. In an instant a bottomless purple whirlpool formed in his left eye, and it connected to an endless purple abyss. Faintly, a taboo power that targeted the soul enveloped the youth's vision. Two idiots. Run! The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon's urgent voice sounded in the ears of the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon. However, its warning was too late. How is this possible? The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon felt a coldness in their souls. It was as if they were restricted and couldn't control themselves. The two were horrified. Their faces were filled with fear as their souls struggled with all their might. In their vision, the purple whirlpool in the youth's left eye extended infinitely, and a forbidden power that could restrict and suck out souls covered the two. This forbidden power was like the power of a god, it couldn't be resisted or resisted. What? The Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon's backs were drenched in sweat as fear and despair spread through their eyes. It was as if no matter how they resisted, they couldn't stop their souls from being restricted. Oh my god! The hearts of the experts and elites that were about to arrive shook. When they met Zhao Feng's left eye, their bodies went cold, and their souls felt light as if they were about to float away. What a terrifying forbidden eye bloodline technique. If Ji Lan was here. Chao Yun from the Chao family felt like he couldn't breathe, and his heart jumped. The two geniuses in the top 10 of the Imperial Genius rankings struggled helplessly in front of Zhao Feng's forbidden eye bloodline technique. This Xiao Feng. How can he? Gu Chaoji from Earth Spirit Hall exclaimed. Even senior brother Zhuge, who was always talking cheerfully and wittily, had a look of bewilderment on his face. He's about to succeed. He's suppressing the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon. Senior martial brother Zhuge had a solemn expression. The aura of the purple-haired youth's forbidden eye bloodline technique made his soul feel uneasy. Meow. Only the little thieving cat on Zhao Yufei's body turned into a silver-gray blur that flashed by. I can't hold on anymore. The Blue Serpent King roared as he turned back into his ice serpent dragon form. However, what made him despair was that even the bloodline of the Ice Serpent Emperor, which was ranked in the top 10 of the Imperial Dao, started to tremble uneasily under the gaze of the youth's left eye. Faintly, a blue yuan soul in the shape of an ice dragon was pulled out of the Blue Serpent King's body. Save me, Lord Black Serpent Dragon. The Blue Serpent King fell into an endless abyss of despair. He didn't even have the ability to fight back against Xiao Feng's gaze of the God Eye. What was even more shocking was that Xiao Feng was fighting 1 against 2. No. A rainbow-colored yuan soul was pulled out of the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon's body. This scene caused the eyes of the geniuses and elites chasing after them to drop. A coldness spread from the soles of their feet to their bodies. The youth sitting on the tree was still sitting. However, he opened his eyes. He was like the representative of the god of death, and a mocking smile appeared on his face. The purple whirlpool in his left eye became even deeper and gave off a fatal suction force that pulled at the souls of the Blue Serpent King and Xiao Feng. The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon seems to be even stronger under the resistance of the Tao of soul and illusions. A weird expression appeared on Xiao Feng's face as he observed from above. In terms of cultivation, the Blue Serpent King and Xiao Feng were both peak-tier kings, and they were just a tiny bit away from forming emperor intent. However, their mastery and techniques of the Tao of the soul were far weaker than Xiao Feng's. Xiao Feng's gaze of the God Eye came from the Emperor of Death's signature technique, the gaze of death. Back then, Xiao Feng had even used the gaze of the God Eye on the Emperor of Death. His gaze of the God Eye seemed to surpass the Emperor of Death, and it contained a unique Tao of illusions. Xiao Feng didn't know what kind of expression Nan Gongsheng had on his face. This is the power of the left-eyed Heavenly Emperor. Nan Gongsheng took in a cold breath. He was behind Xiao Feng, and he could see the Blue Serpent King and Xiao Feng's souls leave their bodies one step at a time. Just as Xiao Feng was about to kill the two, stop. A cold voice filled with disdain resounded through the air. Roar. The roar of the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon sounded from the Blue Serpent King and Thousand Changes illusionary dragon's bodies. A scarlet-black flame suddenly danced in their eyes, emitting a destructive will that could annihilate all things. Boom! An explosion sounded in the soul dimension as the purple lightning clashed with the scarlet-black flames. On the branch, Xiao Feng's body shook as his soul intent shook, and he murmured, Black Destruction Serpent Dragon. In this instant, Xiao Feng's gaze of the God Eye was interrupted, and the souls of the Blue Serpent King and Xiao Feng returned to their bodies. What? My substandard god weapon. The Blue Serpent King was just about to use the misty spatial world when he realized that the bracer on his arm had disappeared. Meow meow. A silver-gray light flashed, and a silver-gray cat the size of a palm appeared on Xiao Feng's shoulder. Good job, thieving cat. Xiao Feng gave a faint smile as he put the bracer that belonged to the Blue Serpent King on his arm. So, the little thieving cat stole the misty spatial world from the Blue Serpent King and Xiao Feng's souls while they were struggling to leave their bodies. Let's run for our lives first. The Thousand Changes illusionary dragon's body flashed with a dark green light. Shwa! The figures of the Blue Serpent King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon disappeared, and their auras completely merged with the forest. As I thought, the Black Serpent Dragon left something on them. Zhao Feng's left eye saw two transparent figures that had merged with the light in the forest and were currently escaping. Chapter 851. So. Zhao Yufei, senior brother Zhuge, and many other elites finally arrived near the forest. By the time they arrived, the Blue Wyrm King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon had already fled from their duel with Zhao Feng. To be exact, the Blue Serpent King and the Azure Serpent King didn't even have the strength to resist. Under Zhao Feng's gaze of the God Eye, they barely managed to keep their lives. Although he didn't manage to kill the Blue Serpent King duo, the substandard god weapon, the Misty Spatial World, fell into Zhao Feng's hands. Although the geniuses of the monarchs were greedy and unwilling when they saw that Zhao Feng had obtained a substandard god weapon, they were more fearful and fearful. The main reason why these people surrounded the Blue Serpent King duo was because of the temptation of a substandard god artifact. Now that the substandard god artifact was obtained by Zhao Feng, everyone lost their motivation and felt disappointed. As for snatching the demigod artifact from Zhao Feng's hands, no one had the courage to do so at the moment. The left eye of the young man sitting on the tree rotated and returned to its normal color. These two's soul intents are close to the void god realm, and their bloodlines and bodies are strong. Furthermore, they have the black serpent dragon. It'll be hard to chase them down. Zhao Feng glanced at the direction in which the Blue Wyrm King and Blue Wyrm King had escaped. In a head-on battle, Zhao Feng's chances of winning against the Blue Serpent King and company weren't very high. If Nan Gongsheng was added to the mix, they would have a 50-50 chance. The gaze of the God Eye was originally the most optimal eye bloodline technique to capture and kill these two, but alas, it was still one step short. However, Zhao Feng had achieved his goal. He had obtained a substandard god artifact and taught the Blue Serpent King and the Black Serpent King a lesson. He had even indirectly established his might in front of the experts of the various forces. At this moment, senior martial brother Zhuge and the other kings didn't dare to make a move when they saw Zhao Feng and Lin Fan. Good move, sir. You've brought glory to us humans. The fake demonic duo must be the Blue Wyrm King and the Thousand Changes illusionary dragon. Senior brother Zhuge stepped forward and cupped his hands with a smile. Zhao Feng's forbidden eye bloodline technique just now had stunned everyone. Besides senior brother Zhuge, Zhao Yufei, and a few others, the rest of the king and half-step king warriors did not dare to get too close. I told you, brother Zhao Feng wouldn't do such a thing. Zhao Yufei happily stepped forward. Not long ago. Seeing that Zhao Feng was facing the Blue Serpent King and the Black Serpent King on his own, she was a little worried. But in the end, he was still, that person, in her heart, the target that she had always admired and wanted to chase after. It seems like there are still some sensible people among the humans. Zhao Feng responded to senior brother Zhuge with a slight nod. Zhao Feng might teach the Blue Serpent King and the Black Serpent King a lesson or hunt them down, but he wouldn't bother to explain himself. However, when they were in the building of smelting, senior brother Zhuge had already seen through their identities. In this regard, Zhao Feng was somewhat gratified. Whoosh! With a flash of silver and purple, Nan Gongsheng landed next to Zhao Feng. Purple-haired demonic duo. The hearts of the kings and half-step kings that didn't dare to get too close shook. At this moment, the complete and true demonic duo appeared in front of everyone. The one who attacked just now was only one of the demonic duo. Brother Zhao. Senior brother Zhuge continued, there's still 20 or so days before the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon will charge into Xiaoyang Palace. I hope that we humans can work together and fight against this enemy. Right now, he hoped that the Black Destruction Serpent Dragon could work together and not fight amongst themselves. Zhao Feng obviously understood what he meant and nodded his head. The Black Destruction Serpent Dragon is an invincible existence to us. We can only defeat it with our wits. Does this mean that brother Zhao has a plan? A light flashed through senior brother Zhuge's eyes. The two exchanged glances in the air, but neither of them spoke or sent a message. Although Zhao Feng didn't have to worry about the mark of destruction, senior brother Zhuge might not be the same. Roar! Outside Xiaoyang Palace, the black destruction serpent dragon's black-scaled body spun as its claws and tail smashed against the god's forbidden array. As time passed, more and more flaws appeared on the god's forbidden array, and its defense started to weaken. Every second that passed meant that the people within Xiaoyang Palace were closer to death. Even someone as confident as Zhao Feng knew that the black destruction serpent dragon was an invincible existence. After all, it was an existence that could fight against ancient gods. A conservative estimate. At its peak, the black destruction serpent dragon was at least a demigod, and it had a high chance of reaching the heavenly divine realm. Ha ha ha. The god's forbidden array is even weaker than I imagined. I will charge into Xiaoyang Palace in 20 days. A violent and arrogant laugh with a destructive intent resounded across Xiaoyang Palace. The bodies of those that had been imprinted with the mark of destruction shook. Only 20 days left. The hearts of the human experts that entered Xiaoyang Palace dropped. In the treetops, there are still many things that can change in 20 days. Zhao Feng slowly stood up with a calm gaze. It wasn't like he hadn't been in a similar situation before. Back then, he had entered the Purple Saint Ruins as an outsider and fought against 3 two-star sects by himself. He had also narrowly escaped death during the pursuit of death. However, his opponent this time was unprecedentedly strong and undefeatable at the current stage. Let's go to the building of refinement first. Zhao Feng leapt into the air and landed with Nan Gongsheng. He remembered that there were still a few complete items on the tattered weapons rack, including shields and arrows. Whoosh! 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 The geniuses that were participating in the pursuit all retreated toward the building of refinement. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongsheng's movements weren't too fast or too slow. Let's study the misty spatial world first. Zhao Feng's gaze landed on the bracer on his arm. The material of the arm guard seemed to be either silver or copper. At first glance, it looked very ordinary, but upon closer inspection, it seemed to be very pleasing to the eye. It had a bit of a simple and unadorned charm. The misty spatial world is said to be a support-type spatial item. Its abilities include storage, teleportation, and so on. Nan Gongsheng said with envy. Because he specialized in the elements of space, he knew a lot about the legends of the element of space. Zhao Feng soon started to understand the misty spatial world with Nan Gongsheng's explanation. Firstly, the ancient metal ring on Zhao Feng's finger was now a thing of the past. This was because the misty spatial world was a spatial tool that could store items. The misty spatial world had its own little world, and it was several times bigger than the cloud country that Zhao Feng came from. Moreover, the little world that came with it wasn't the prototype of an ordinary great emperor's little world. Zhao Feng's divine sense entered the misty spatial world and touched this little world. This little world was similar to the Purple Saint Ruins. It had its own laws, mountains, rivers, air, water, heaven-earth spiritual chi, and even humans. As expected of a substandard god weapon, Zhao Feng couldn't help but sigh. The most practical thing was that the misty spatial world didn't have a high requirement for the owner's cultivation. Once one obtained this substandard god weapon, it was the same as having a little world and becoming the ruler of it. Furthermore, the misty spatial world's interspatial dimension was an independent dimension created on top of the little world. It was very stable, and even demigod attacks would find it hard to enter. Apart from that, the misty spatial world also had the ability to teleport. In theory, as long as we're strong enough, we can set up a spatial marker in the true martial sacred land and use the misty spatial world to instantly pass through space and return to the Tsang Ocean. Nan Gongsheng's tone was filled with yearning. Return to the Tsang Ocean. Zhao Feng jumped up in fright. The misty spatial world had the ability to pass through space. Not only can the owner of the misty spatial world travel through space, he can also teleport other targets far away. Nan Gongxing added. The ability to teleport. Zhao Feng was overjoyed. Although this substandard god weapon didn't have any battle power, its support abilities were heaven-defying. Its value was probably close to that of an ancient god weapon. Unfortunately, we weren't able to use this substandard god weapon to leave a spatial marker in the outside world. Otherwise, we could have returned to the continent and ignored the black serpent dragon. Nan Gongxing said regretfully. Not necessarily. Zhao Feng shook his head faintly. The god's forbidden array in Xiayang Palace is restricted by powerful laws. It can be done in normal areas of the divine illusion dimension, but it might not be possible here. Even so, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing were still slightly regretful. If Zhao Feng had obtained this substandard god weapon from the outside world and left a spatial marker behind, he could have returned any time he wanted. Of course. There were some spatial markers left on the substandard god weapon, but they were too far away and couldn't be sensed, let alone teleport. Even if he could sense them, Zhao Feng wouldn't dare to use them rashly. Who knew what dangerous place he would be teleported to? Seng. Seng. Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing slowly floated into the hexagonal building of refinement. Master. Deng Chao, the silver-armored youth from Sky Suspension Palace, sent a message to Zhao Feng respectfully. Through Deng Chao, Zhao Feng knew what was going on even without entering the building of refinement. In the air above the building of refinement, the three peerless godly weapons, the rusted copper sword, the curled blade knife, and the chipped axe, had all made great progress. Among them, the ancient god weapon, the rusty bronze sword, released a whirlpool of green light that merged with the sword light that the white beard had turned into. The two merged into one another and maintained a balance in the air. They even broke through the restrictions of Xiayang Palace. Faintly, the white beard's hand was about to touch the rusty bronze sword. Furthermore, he was enveloped by the power of the tattered ancient god sword. Even emperors wouldn't dare to offend him. The other two substandard god weapons, the curled blade and the notched axe, were about to be subdued as well. The notched axe landed on the heads of the three Imperials. The 8th, 9th, and 13th princes teamed up and used their bloodline techniques to finally gain the approval of the substandard god weapon. The curled blade was the one with the fastest progress. Come! Xian Yuanwen's hands turned into the air, and countless streaks of light surrounded the curled blade. At the same time, his martial monarch might and will envelop the space around him. The strange jade piece on his neck released wisps of white light that covered his body. When the divine artifact Rolling Blade Saber trembled and suddenly transformed into a snow-white crystal-scaled saber that fell into the hands of the elegant youth. In that instant, a glittering, snow-white saber light slashed through the air and created flashes of lightning. The indescribable power of the saber light lit up the entire furnace. The bodies of all the kings present shook, and they felt as if their minds were going to collapse. Xian Yuanwen barely managed to hold the snow-white crystalline blade as his handsome face went dark red. Right at this moment, Zhao Feng and Nan Gongxing slowly stepped into the building of refinement. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.